Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Wednesday, October 1st. We're here. We're live. And it is the start of October. It is officially the start of October. It is the start of Q4. September is done. Q3 is done. And we have got a lot to talk about in terms of what the next 3 months will hold for the stock market. It's also really important because, this is the final kind of stretch we have to end out the year. And so all the year-to-date performances are pretty much going to be decided in the next couple months in terms of how they end up performing. I know a lot of us have done pretty well this year, and we want to keep some of those gains, hopefully most of those gains. And so we're going to have to end out Q4 in the right way to see if that happens. Now, the biggest headline across the board, which I think everyone has been able to see over the past 24 hours, is not my birthday, but it is my birthday month. So we are in October. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes, even though we're good 27. Dude, in 27 days, I turned 28 years old. That's crazy. That's freaking crazy. But that is happening in 28 days. So we're going to have that. And I know a lot of you guys have birthdays in October, so it'll be fun to see everyone's birthday. We shut down. The government shut down. It has happened officially. We knew by about 9 p.m. last night that Republican proposals to put up some type of a spending bill or extensions of a spending bill and Democratic proposals have also been rejected. And as a result, at 12 a.m. Eastern last night, earlier this morning, we got a shutdown. So we're going to talk about the implications of this. We've done a bit of deep digging in terms of the data over the past couple of days in terms of what happens when a shutdown does occur in the United States. And TLDR, it's not that big of a deal historically. And maybe this time is going to be a little bit nuanced in terms of how the shutdown takes place. But overall, the S&P 500 actually gains 3% over the past times we've shut down. The last time we had a negative S&P 500 throughout the course of a shutdown was 1996. So it's been a while. It has been a while. Now, pre-markets are red. And honestly, I don't even think pre-markets are red because of the shutdown. Maybe that's incorporating or that's contributing to some of it. You got Robinhood right there that had an amazing day yesterday, 143. Now it's at 141. Palantir's down about 1%. Tesla's down a little bit. Nvidia down about 1%. Nvidia did break new all-time highs yesterday at 185. SOFI is actually the only one that's kind of green in the pre-market. Reddit's down pretty badly. There's a bad report that came out about Reddit. We'll talk about that. But the real reason I think we're down right now in the pre-markets is, unfortunately, the labor market data was not that good. Now, we're not going to get non-farm payrolls on Friday because the government has shut down. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not going to be operating, which means we're not going to be able to get data. By the way, remember that new person that Trump nominated to be the head of the BLS, which was his response to the corrupt former head of the BLS? They withdrew the nomination for that person. So even if the BLS was in session on Friday, if the government wasn't closed, I don't know exactly which commissioner, which authority inside of the body would actually be releasing the data, because now you have a new BLS. So we're going to see ultimately who that new BLS chief is and how that affects the broader market. But ADP private payrolls came in at negative 32,000 versus 51,000 expected. This is the steepest job decline we've seen in the country since late 2023. And I think the other stat that's really relevant here is that these are back-to-back months now of private payrolls from ADP going negative. So that is what we're looking at in terms of the labor market. Obviously, that's not the best thing to see, especially in an economy that's already showing some type of labor market is having an issue. But nonetheless, it also is the reason why Jay Powell's cutting rates. So the nuance here and why stocks might not be the most affected is, hey, labor market's showing some weakness. Initial jobless claims not the best, although it was a little bit better last Thursday than it was 2 Thursdays ago. Obviously, the revisions on the labor market have not been good over the past couple of weeks and past couple of months. Also in 2024, we lost 911,000 jobs, which wasn't a good thing. But now you have 2 months back-to-back of negative private payrolls. And not only that, August, the payroll number was revised from negative to plus 54 to negative 3,000. And that's why it's back-to-back months of negative payrolls. Like, it would have been just 1 month of negative payrolls, but the fact that they had to revise August down to plus 54,000 to negative 3,000, again, those revisions, just like, I think all of us are like, what is the methodology to even count those jobs in the first place to the point where they have to get revised? That is what makes this a bit more atrocious. And that's why we're seeing some of the pain that we're kind of seeing right now in the pre-market. Sid said Powell should have cut by 0.5. So that is the mainstream narrative that has popped up over the past 20 minutes since this data has come out, that Powell is indeed too late. And quite frankly, I think the other reason why the market might not necessarily tank on this news. I know we're down in the pre-market, but it might not be the worst thing in the world, is because if this signals to Powell, hey, we were going to do 50 basis cuts to end out the year, but now we need to do 75, we might need to do 100. And the worst thing is if they're not going to get any data on Friday, and maybe the government shut down for another couple weeks, then we don't get the next month's job data either, or it's just going to be more delayed. The Fed's going to be operating in blindness and uncertainty. And if you're uncertain, you'd rather be safe than sorry, which means maybe you'd rather cut rates than not cut rates. And as a result, that might be some of the pain that we're seeing in the labor market. Now, Bitcoin loves it. I did not expect Bitcoin to make such a gigantic move from 111 yesterday to 116. So, I mean, maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum are reacting to the government shutdown as another argument for why the United States currency, the dollar, the certainty around the economic structure of the United States is not as stable as people thought. And that theoretically is good for Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto, sort of these alternative assets. I think gold is up as well in the pre-markets. And then the other thing is that, hey, if the labor market's weakening and that means the Fed is going to more likely cut rates. Yeah, look at gold, 3,900 for the first time, breaking through this morning. If the labor market's that weak, then we're gonna have to cut rates, and more rate cuts means more liquidity good for an asset like a Bitcoin, gold, Ethereum, etc. Yeah, Bitcoin and gold all having some green right here in the pre-markets. So was Trump right? I mean, we are going to find out. Obviously, I think most people, even if you're not the biggest fan of Trump, can agree that we probably needed to cut rates sooner than we did. The question is, do we need to cut rates as aggressively as Trump and some of his peers are calling for? Because, yeah, we probably should have cut rates in July. That's fine. But, like, do we now need to catch up to such a degree based on the unhealthiness of the labor market that Powell legitimately is too late? Time will tell, but we're going to have to see what the Fed thinks of this data. In general, labor market looking like it's not the best in the world right now. So that is what we've got, and that's why the labor market is getting a little weak. Let's get a little bit of coverage on that labor market data, and then we will keep going from there.
Explain why that's lower than expected in just a second. The goods sector down 3,000, the service sector down 28,000, the non-farm payroll estimate for Friday is 51,000. Now, this number here that you saw was a result in part of ADP incorporating those recent big revisions from the BLS in terms of their April to March 2025 numbers. So August was 54,000. That's now been revised down to minus 3,000 as part of an incorporation of a new growth rate in the job market that ADP picked up from the benchmark revision. So September minus 32 would have been plus 11 without those revisions. But this is the new reality. This is the new growth rate. Okay, now let's look back to the report here. What happened? Small business down 40, medium business down to 20, but large business still hiring, according to this report, up 33,000. By sector, education, health services still really leading and showing the way, up 33,000. Natural resources and mining, 4,000. And you can see there the big decline there, leisure and hospitality down 19,000.
A lot of that coming from the services sector, which has been a trend in terms of the labor market showing some weakness. And so the question is simply going to be, hey, do people not have enough disposable income to pay for all these ancillary services because they are losing their jobs, or they're not getting hired? Remember, Jay Powell said a couple of weeks ago, it's a low fire, low hire economy, which means, yes, maybe people aren't getting fired at an aggressive rate, but people also aren't getting hired at an aggressive rate. And a lot of that, quite frankly, could be because of AI, which the implications of that have yet to be seen. But that is what we've got dealing with right now. And this is kind of why the markets are red in the pre-markets. Now, overall, how do we end out Q3? It was a pretty historic Q3. We've had the best September since 2010 in the stock market, at least for the S&P 500. And then overall Q3, S&P was up 7%, the NASDAQ 8, small caps 10, Palantir 40, Robinhood 55, NVIDIA 21, Nebius 111, Tesla 48, Grab 21, Google, SOFI, Meta, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Rock Lab. I mean, all of these just had monster months along with, or monster quarters, along with some other companies that did very, very well. And so it was a very successful Q3 as a recovery from the Liberation Day stuff. And I think now the question is, can that continue into Q4? And if we obviously get more rate cuts, that would help us get there. But the Fed's going to need to be in a position where they think that they need to get more rate cuts. Now, this is how government shutdowns have performed for U.S. stocks. This is an analysis by Bloomberg right here. The average government shutdown has lasted 8 days and led to the stock market being up or down 0% if you take an aggregate average of shutdowns since 1976. Again, the last one we had in 2018, December, from December 22nd to January 19th, 2020 or 2018. That was 35 days. And the S&P 500 was down 7% before the shutdown. It was up 3.5% a week after the shutdown. And it was up 10% during the shutdown. So it's one of those things that's not the most conclusive. Yeah, barely red. I mean, 0% up or down. Dude, if you give us a government shutdown and 0% up or down is the result of that, I'll take it. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. All right, Reddit. Why is Reddit getting crushed? So it's a little bit of a weird reason. I mean, it makes sense, but it's also it's not necessarily the most statistically relevant. But Reddit shares are down this morning after some chatter that the number of Reddit sources being cited by ChatGPT has dropped off notably since September 11th. This is using data from SimilarWeb. SimilarWeb is a data aggregator that tries to compile the most like specific data on the web in terms of web search traffic. And they're a pretty reliable source. So I'm not doubting the source here, but it's kind of like a rumor that ChatGPT is not showing Reddit enough in the GEO, generative engine optimization, versus SEO. We know that SEO is more rooted in optimizing for Google. And as a result, Reddit's getting hit. Now, Reddit already trades at a pretty aggressive multiple, and the stock was almost at 300 at one point earlier this year. It was also at like 70, so it has had a great year. And if it ends out the year at these levels, I don't think people can be too upset. But it is down 9% on the idea that OpenAI is not recommending it as much as people thought. And this goes to show a little bit of the fragility of some of these social media companies that are relying on a search engine for the majority of their traffic, or a AI engine, which in the future, Reddit's going to have to optimize for Gemini, ChatGPT, all these different products. But that lack of stability in their essentially trajectory of showing up on these search engines or generative AI engines, that's why that stock is down 10%. I don't know if it's necessarily a buy the dip, but I do think, Reddit's earnings are not slowing down in any significant way. So we're going to have to see if we get more updates on that, but that's why it is down 10%. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit. I'm not a big Reddit guy, but it is, called the front page of the internet for a reason. There is a dedicated user base that loves that platform and scrolls through it every day. I'm just more on Twitter. But, Twitter's not good at advertising either, which is why I think they got bought out by XAI a while ago. So that's what we have on Reddit. NVIDIA right there, 184.94. And Spotify. So Daniel X stepped down yesterday. Spotify green, Spotify, it's still a little red. I didn't expect Daniel Ek to step down, but he did. I don't think it has a long-term issue on Spotify at all. It's if Elon stepped down from Tesla, that's a totally different question. But Daniel Ek stepping down from Spotify shouldn't have that much of a long-term impact. But that stock's still down from the 700s. So there you go. Michelle says, I'm on Reddit looking at spiders all day. See, like, people have such weird things they do on Reddit. I've never been a Reddit scroller. Ira, thank you for the super chat, for the $100 super chat. Happy birthday month. Amir, thanks for all you do. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat and for the birthday month. I know it's a big birthday month for all of us. A lot of people have October birthdays. So October tends to be a fun month. It's hoodie season in New Jersey, at least. And it's some of the best weather of the year. So appreciate it, Ira. Thank you for the super chat. And Elvis, thank you as well for becoming a channel member. For those that do have birthdays in October, please let me know in the chat. We will celebrate those birthdays every single day. All right, so that's what we got on Reddit. Now let's get a little bit more coverage on this government shutdown. Again, it happened at 12 a.m. last night. And here are some implications, at least from the political side of the angle, on how this ends up playing out.
And hand even more power to this reckless administration. She went on to say we need a bipartisan solution to address this impending healthcare crisis, but we should not be swapping the pain of one group of Americans for another. An estimated 750,000 federal workers are expected to be furloughed in this shutdown. And Trump did reiterate yesterday that he does plan to follow through on firing federal employees and potentially closing some programs. And so, guys, the question, I guess, now is how long it's going to go. And for the White House, what are their next moves going to be? Andrew?
What do you think is on offer? That's the question. Meaning, what would have to happen to either pull some Dems? What would be the sort of necessary ingredients at this point?
So, Andrew, one of the things that I was chatting with some of my sources on Capitol Hill about yesterday is that in a shutdown scenario, the pressure just absolutely increases. I mean, that line from we're going into a shutdown to we're in a shutdown, you have folks who aren't getting paid, you have a number of programs that have stopped. It's like 1,000 little switches all turn off at once. And some of those switches you don't recognize maybe in the first day or even the first week what it means for them to be off. But the longer you go, the more pain there is. That means there's going to be increasing amount of pressure on these Democrats to vote with Republicans, because that's the plan for GOP leadership. They're going to continue to put this bill on the floor. They're going to continue to have Democrats to vote, and they're going to continue to put some of these Democrats, especially those from, say, states that are a little bit more purple, a little bit more swing states, to continue to justify their decision in keeping the government closed while the amount of risk and impact continues to ratchet up. So I think for every day that passes is another day that more pressure is going to be put on Senate Democrats to try to find a way to get to yes, or to accept that they need to reopen up the government without having anything more than they currently have, which is just a verbal promise from Republicans that they will work with them on these tax credits.
Well, that's
So 750,000 workers will be furloughed. Trump theoretically is going to be firing more people, as he said, that at least that's what he's threatened he would do. And so we're going to see if that happens. But the other thing that's important here is when this comes to an end. And basically, Senate can take a vote whenever they want, but they're not going to just take a vote if they don't think they're going to have the actual people needed to get a majority. And we'll put a green or red poll today in the chat. What do we think happens? So like we might see multiple votes over the coming weeks, really over the coming days. But until, and by the way, there were a couple of Democrats that voted with I think there were 3 Democrats that voted with the Republicans to actually extend and like keep the government open. So it wasn't like that. I mean, it was obviously very polarized left and right, but you did have a couple people from the other side join the Republicans and agree that like their version of proposing the budget spend is the right way to do, is the right way to do it. And that is telling that maybe there's enough of a little bit of a hunch that the Republicans have to try to get some of the Democrats on their side, because if 3 of them thought it was reasonable, maybe like 10 of them can think it's reasonable. But if it does end up lasting, as long as, you know, some people are thinking it could last, who knows? Maybe this will be longer than what it was in 2018. I've heard Mike Johnson's perspective, JD Vance's perspective. I've heard a lot of different people's perspectives, and Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, et cetera. They all seem pretty split on the healthcare issue for illegal immigrants, and that might be the defining factor of how this plays out. Now, what actually shuts down in a shutdown? National parks, monuments, and museums, those are closed. Federal courts are open. Visitor centers and parks and monuments are closed. Economic data collection and reports, aka the BLS, that's closed. FHA mortgage programs, those are open. The mail is open. The Amtrak is open. Small business loans are closed, not the best for the economy. TSA, air traffic control, and passport offices are open. So, I mean, you have some essential things, some essential services like federal courts and air traffic control that are open, but you got a lot of other workers that are just not going to be able to go to work if those things end up being closed. So we are going to see over the coming weeks what ends up playing out and how exactly this begins to happen. Now, in terms of what it means for the stock market, again, like we talked about this over the past couple of days, I think it's a buy the dip. I think it's a massive buy the dip. By the way, SOFI right here up about 1%. I think one of you guys said in the chat the Upstart report was seen as not as credible by a couple of other sources that analyzed it, and that is why SOFI is getting a little bit of a boost because of the like delegitimizing of that Upstart report. I mean, if you bought the SOFI dip on that Upstart report being the reason for why it went down, then it makes sense, because like I don't think anyone thought Upstart was that comparable to SOFI, but looks like that's getting a little bit of recovery as that's green. TLT is up a little bit. AppLovin, that's down a little bit. Circle, that's up a little bit. Again, Bitcoin, Ethereum, October has been very, very good for Bitcoin. I was actually looking at another chart that says Bitcoin hasn't had a red October in like almost 10 years. So it really is October for Bitcoin, and hopefully that can continue in the face of even having a shutdown. But I think if there's any other stocks that create a massive opportunity from a dip buy, I mean, it becomes a real dip buy. We have not had the dip that people were looking for in August and September, and maybe that ends up happening in October. Again, if you're just joining, Reddit is down based on some sources that say that ChatGPT is not recognizing or recommending Reddit searches or Reddit websites in its search results. think it's a little bit of a flimsy reason for it to be down. It was at 190. Now it's at 212. So a lot of it has been recovered already, but that one's still down about 7%. So there you go. BMNR, what do we've got going on there? BMNR is 5401. So that one, again, going green as Ethereum starts to break through a little bit, potentially 4,200 on the way, or 4,300 on the way, which would be exciting to see. But it looks like that's why BMNR is getting some momentum. And now it's been holding 50 pretty well. I mean, it's been down. It was down below 50 last week. It's been holding 50 to 50, basically 54 this entire week. And, if Ethereum can get into that 4,800 range, I think we break 60 again. But I do think Ethereum is going to have to make a move. Netflix is also in the news. This stock is getting a little hurt, down 2%. There is a social media campaign. I think Elon brought a lot of attention to it over some shows on Netflix that have not been the most politically friendly in the age of how at least Elon and certain parts of the aisle think of those political shows. There's some cartoon shows for kids that are talking about trans issues. And as a result, you got a lot of people on Netflix, or a lot of people that have Netflix, that are just upset that it's even showing this stuff. And as a result, we don't have the stats on how many people are canceling it, but you do have a decent amount of people. I mean, I think this post has almost like 50 million views, with a lot of comments underneath it saying that they are canceling their Netflix. Now, this has happened many times to Netflix. They've dealt with controversy in a variety of ways, especially around this issue. Netflix right here down about 2%. I don't know if it's the end-all be-all for Netflix, but you do have a lot of people that are just upset that there are cartoons targeted at kids that are talking about these specific issues. So the downside question on Netflix is always very interesting because, again, Netflix is up 37% year to date. It's held off very well. And remember back when Google was 150, Netflix was being poised towards Google as like the recessionary play because people wouldn't cancel their Netflix, even if Google's like ad model starts to change because of LLMs. Obviously, we've seen that has kind of not happened. Google has really been able to hold their ad model really tight. And it's not that people haven't canceled Netflix. It's that now people are canceling based on some political issue, not really based on the affordability of can they pay $15 a month for a subscription, which is a totally different reason you're seeing some pressure on Netflix stock. So I don't think any of the analyst community on Netflix has come out and said, hey, this is an issue, or we really care about this, or it's like, something that could actually affect the company. But we'll see if they get any downgrades based on this issue, or if Netflix organically can find a way to navigate and solve some of the problems they have going on right now. But you got Netflix right there. That's down about 1.13%. Okay, so we talked about the jobs data. Again, it came in worse than expected. 2 months of negative GDP, or not negative GDP, negative ADP payrolls. And that is creating a bit more weakness right here. Let me see if I can get Mike Johnson's thoughts, because he was on this morning kind of explaining a bit more of how this shutdown ended up taking place. Let's listen to a little bit of this, and then we'll keep going from there.
For Medicaid. So what exactly are you saying that they're trying to do when you talk about giving free health care to them?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had Medicaid reforms in the bill. You and I talked about it on the air. What we did was to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There were a lot of people on the program who were enrolled in the program who were never eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended for eligible U.S. citizens, not illegal aliens, not also U.S. citizens who are able-bodied workers like young men. So we passed the law. This president signed it into law. Democrats voted against it, of course. And it's been wildly successful. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is the neutral arbiter of all these things, released a report a few weeks ago, earlier this month. And they said, you know what? The bill has had its intended purpose. Premiums are coming down. Listen, because 2.3 million ineligible enrollees have been kicked off of Medicaid, which helps to save the program, prop it up. And $185 billion has been saved already.
So basically, what you did was narrow the eligibility for certain people to get access to the ACA subsidies. What they want to do is undo the changes that Republicans made in that. But basically, wouldn't that only affect people who do have legal status, people who are refugee seekers here in the United States, asylum seekers here?
Those are two totally different issues. Now, they've created this as a new argument that they have as to why they should not keep the government open, but they're arguing a December policy debate for a September funding issue. The subsidies that you're talking about don't expire until the end of December.
No. Those are the subsidies for just everyday Americans. That's one thing that obviously has been the main premise of their argument. But you're saying they want to give free health care to people who are in the United States illegally.
That is exactly what the effect will be.
But when I looked at it, there's a little nuance because they want to undo changes that y'all made, narrowing who is eligible to get that. Those are people who are refugee seekers, asylum seekers. They're not technically people who are here illegally, just cross the border.
No, this is exactly what will happen. And Maxine Waters admitted, I think, accidentally today on the House steps, they want to give health care to everybody.
But Maxine Waters is not in charge. She's not the one. She didn't write this proposal.
She's one of the senior leaders in the House. And everybody should Google it and read their counter proposal.
But you see my point, right? You're making this.
As you can see, I mean, this is the core of the debate that is going to be happening for a long time. How is the healthcare being distributed? Is it going to certain different groups of the population? Is it not going to certain different groups? Is it an exemption? Is it a full way for different people to get access to ACA healthcare? So, I mean, like that, they are, and I've seen that same clip from Mike Johnson talking to a reporter like 15 different times over the past 48 hours. It's the same debate, the same discussion. And obviously, these people have two different perspectives. And I don't know what exactly gets them to agree on one way to navigate to the perspectives on what healthcare looks like underneath the big, beautiful bill and underneath the new way that the government sets up the foundation for funding over the next 7 months. Because, by the way, they would have only extended, or 7 weeks, this shutdown that would have been avoided theoretically last night, it only would have extended the government for 7 weeks, and then they would have to negotiate again. So it's not like last night they were voting on some 7-year way to make sure the government doesn't shut down. It literally would have only given us another month and a half before they would have to do a vote again. And if they're not able to even cooperate on 7 weeks worth of funding, it's going to be a little complicated for them to get through a couple of years. But nonetheless, they're going to have to. Otherwise, the government's going to be shut down for a long time. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but hopefully it does happen sooner, at least sooner than later. So that's what we got there. Henry, thank you for the $20 super chat. Happy Wednesday, everyone. My wife is delivering our second daughter today. Wow. And we're watching from the delivery room. Dude, that is crazy. Wish us luck, everybody, and hoping for a green birthday. Thanks for the coverage, Mitt. Keep being the man. Henry, that is absolutely awesome, bro. That is so cool. That is so cool. I don't even know what to say. You're watching this from the delivery room. That's awesome. Dude, well, first of all, I'm happy she's an October baby. I love that she's being born on October 1st. So that's just awesome. And yeah, thanks for having me on in the delivery room. I hope it's a very, very special day. I hope she comes out healthy and everything's good. And you get to enjoy a new life with a new daughter. Dude, that's crazy. That is wild. Name the kid Amit. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Dude, congrats to you, man. And thank you for keeping me part of the journey while keeping me on the TV screen or the computer screen or the iPhone screen, iPad screen with your loved ones. That's really cool. It's very humbling, dude. Very, very humbling to know that I'm part of that journey as well. So awesome, awesome stuff. Hopefully we get a green day. And she was born on an October 1st. I wonder if the stock market was red or green. Let's ask Google that. Was the stock market red or green on October 27th, 1997? Stock market was overwhelmingly red on October 27th. Damn, bro. I was born and the market was collapsing. See, if I had some consciousness that day, I would have bought the dip. That's the first thing I would have done on my birthday. Damn, bro, the S&P was down 7% on my birthday. Goodness, dude. You know I would have bought that dip. You know I would have had to buy that dip. Come out the wound and say, let me buy the dip, dude. That's what I should have been buying NVIDIA during this time. Instead, I was trying to figure out how to talk and shit. There you go. Thank you, Henry. Congratulations to you. And yeah, very, 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 very special day, and hope everything goes well with the new daughter. So thank you for being here. All right, S&P 663.51. We got about 14 minutes until the market opens. NVIDIA hit all-time highs yesterday. That was fun. Broke through 187.35. I don't know if we get there again, but it will be super awesome if we see it. 185.05. And then Robinhood also broke through all-time highs. Now, a couple updates on Robinhood. Number one, Bloomberg reported that the prediction markets are likely going to be expanding across the entire world, which is super bullish because that product has done very, very well in the United States. And then number 2, Vlad said Q3 was our biggest quarter yet of shipping Robinhood Gold cards. We're up to 450,000 card holders with over 45% growth this quarter and more to come. I think this stock price action has surprised everyone. I mean, I would be happy if we ended the year at 120 and then I updated it to 130 to 135. Now we're at 141. If we can maintain and hold the 140s, I mean, dude, this just becomes very special. I don't know if we can. Now, I said that yesterday because I was skeptical because I was like, dude, we just went up 20% or like 15%. Maybe we need to chill out a bit. And then we went up another 5%. So today is another test with all the macro stuff, the start of Q4. Can we actually hold the 140s or does it kind of die down when the market opens? And we're going to see. But this has been pretty incredible. It's been pretty incredible to kind of see how this is playing out. And again, if the S&P 500 is at 7,000 end of year, Bitcoin, Ethereum, that goes up. Bitcoin, again, having a great 4% move or 2% move, Ethereum about 4%. It's hard to say the floor to Robinhood is, back at the 120s. That floor might be around 135, 140, and maybe 150, 160 is the upside. Now, again, I hate throwing out those numbers because I really do like to be conservative with price targets. And it's hard to imagine that the growth is so substantial that it can quantitatively make sense of that market cap. But we've seen companies get a premium that is hard to justify quantitatively, but people simply want to be part of that story, aka Palantir. And that could be happening for Robinhood. One thing that's also important for Robinhood is that although their stock is up 5x in the past 18 months, their earnings multiple has come down from 140 to 60. So, or 164 to 92. So the stock went from 24 to 139, earnings multiple from 164 to 92. That is very, very healthy growth. The stock is going up and the earnings are going up. So even though the multiple on the stock is going higher, the multiple actually ends up going lower because the stock price is not naturally just rising. The earnings growth is what's allowing the stock price to rise. And the earnings growth continues to get the multiple to come down if the growth continues to be higher. So yeah, yesterday was still Q3 rebalance, which could have been a reason for why some people sold certain names like a Salesforce and Adobe, which actually took a nasty hit yesterday and they piled into potentially like a Robinhood, Nvidia, Palantir. So you're seeing a little bit of the effect of that rebalance, but it is pretty exciting to get some of that momentum. And then obviously NVIDIA. I mean, I did not expect NVIDIA to go green yesterday and break through all-time highs. I'm just so happy it finally got above 185. And even if it goes back below, it is what it is. It probably gets its room above 185. They got a big upgrade yesterday. The CoreWeave deal was massive yesterday. So KeyBank upgraded NVIDIA to 250. CoreWeave got a $14.2 billion deal with Meta. CoreWeave down about 1% right here. CoreWeave's been at this price many times before, so the price action was not the most exciting, but it was nice to see the market continue to recognize that there is a constraint on the supply and the demand outstrips the supply when it comes to data center spend. And that continues to affect players like CoreWeave, Nebius, and Iren, which are getting a lot of that momentum. So the sales multiple on Robinhood has expanded massively, though. Yeah, you're not wrong on that. The price of sales on Robinhood is up there, and that and also that's why I didn't really think we'd easily just get into the 140s or even 130s like that. But the market has obviously begun to re-rate it, and now I wonder how much more can that re-rating take place. It would not surprise me if we dip back down to the 130s and consolidate. It would be a little bit surprising if we get back to the 120s. I think the moves we had over the past couple of days means it's going to be hard to get to the 120s. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we try to head higher above the 140s, which would be very, very cool. Okay, the Fermi IPO that's happening today. Let's talk about this. Again, for those that are new to this or new to like hearing about this IPO, it's a Texas energy company. And I am personally not buying it. Again, it's $13 billion, no revenue. One of their nuclear reactors is called the Donald Trump reactor. So obviously this is a stock that is trying to find a way to be very friendly with the administration. And so I think that can actually be good for them. And that probably leads them to have a pop on the IPO. I'm just a little worried because the Klarna IPO wasn't good. Now I know Klarna is more of a fintech and it's in consumer lending. It's not an energy, and Fermi as an energy company should be something that gets a bid. It's just the only energy company that's really been able to get momentum with having no revenue and no real product is Oklo. I don't know if Fermi has that same type of energy to be able to do that, or that same type of shareholder base that's willing to pump it up to those levels. I wouldn't doubt it because it's IPO season, anything can happen, but I wouldn't also participate in it. I'm at the point of the year where I just want to take less risk so we can preserve the gains we've had this year. And so I'm not going to be in it, but I would not be surprised if this one ends up popping. I just think the fundamentals after going through their S1 is like, I don't even know when the revenue is going to happen. Definitely don't know when the profitability is going to happen. Definitely don't know when their nuclear reactors are actually going to go live, even though they named the nuclear reactors the Donald Trump reactors. Like, it's fine to name them whatever you name them, but like, when exactly are they going to get all these projects to finance data centers, which is probably the reason people are excited about it in the first place. So I don't know. I don't know. We're going to have to see what ends up playing out here, but that one probably will go public around 1 p.m. So for those that do get an allocation in like 40 to 50 minutes, you'll know on Robinhood at least. You'll get to see how many shares you own. Greg says, Amit, if the baby's first word is you will never live that down. Dude, I wonder what my baby's first word would be. I wonder what it would be. That is definitely an interesting proposition to think about. I also got to figure out what I'm going to name my kid, bro. Like, it's either Carpy or Vladdy. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We're not gonna go that far. And granted, if the wife is okay with it, I mean, like, but no, we're not gonna go that far. But then again, if she is okay with it, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. 10 years from now, we're gonna see. Grabby grab, yeah, exactly. Stack market, dude. I've been seeing how you guys say. How I say stock market. Apparently, you guys are thinking I say stack, S-T-A-C-K over stock. Does it really sound like stack over stock? Every time I say the stock market is now up, everyone's like, oh, he's saying stack. Like, no, I'm saying stock, but does it sound like stack? Like, is that really the case? Steve's going to have his first live stream on Friday, by the way. I will be making an appearance on that live stream. He can't believe that these many people subscribe to his channel and care about some of his content. So we'll have a fun live stream, probably not Friday, Saturday night. And we'll get to talk about a bunch of things with Steve as well. Bitcoin right there, 116.6. Ethereum, that's up 4%. Palantir down 1%. Hoodie, 141.55. Rocket Lab, what do we got going on? 47.36. That's down. And then ASTS, which did get a big move yesterday. Yeah, that's up 7% based on Bluebird 6 being confirmed. I don't know that much about Bluebird 6 because I'm not that deep into the entire ASTS thesis, but that was confirmed last night, and that got this to pop up 7.6%. Now, this is the report on Upstart and SOFI. So apparently, BTIG, which is an equity research firm, they came out this morning and they said that we originally overstated the August delinquency levels due to a calculation error. The corrected data still shows delinquencies rising, but nowhere near as dramatically as first reported. It remains a risk signal, just as far less severe one. This is why SOFI is up. This is why SOFI is up. It's quite incredible for a Wall Street bank that gets paid like literally thousands and thousands of dollars per page of their research to come out and say, hey, we really messed up aggressively on the severity of delinquencies we calculated. And Upstart, is that getting a little bit of a boost based on that? Upstart's up 7%. There you go. So Upstart's like a beating this whole week based on that report. This is good. This just goes to show you how much these firms have an impact on these stocks, which is why these companies try to keep such a good relationship with these firms. Because like they write one really bad thing or really good thing, it could have a total difference on the trajectory of the company. But SoFi, if you bought the dip at 25.70, you are getting some love right here. Again, we sold some puts yesterday at 24, so those puts should be able to print. And it looks like SoFi's delinquencies should not be as bad as people thought with Upstart. Can we sue the reporter? I usually, I mean, see, the thing is, if you sue BTIG for that, because it's not a reporter, it's an equity analyst, like, you know, SoFi, Upstart, they don't want to get into a legal battle with an equity research firm. You know, you kind of just move on from it, because then, you know, you get a bad reputation as a company, but at least they've corrected themselves, which is the most important. And that should, and then again, this goes back to the irrationality of the market, dude. Like some random report that has nothing to do with SoFi in the first place, tanking SoFi, now ends up not even being the most accurate version of that report. I mean, that is obviously why markets become very, very opportunistic in certain moments. And, you know, if you take advantage of those opportunities, they can definitely help you average down or average up in the right way. So not too bad there. Nike, in terms of those earnings, they beat on the top and the bottom, 73.90. That's actually up 6%. Not too bad. We were looking at it last night. I mean, it wasn't a blowout quarter from my understanding. They did raise a little bit of guidance. They had good comps. And so that's why they were able to kind of outperform on the top and the bottom line. I don't know if it's necessarily a buy here, but look, they beat EPS by 81%, which is good. It makes sense why it's not selling off. Again, I didn't listen to the call, but if you're super bullish on an overall turnaround for the brand, more so than anything, tariffs are not affecting them that much. I think their brand has really been taking a hit. Just there's been more competitors. There's not been that much exciting flavor to Nike over the past couple of years. Seems like Elliott Hill, new CEO, might be able to change that. And that's why Nike is getting a bit of a boost along with the top and the bottom line beat in the pre-markets. So there you go. That's what you got on Nike. Yes, I believe the conversation with Mike Novogratz is happening Friday, not tomorrow, Friday. I got to text them today to confirm, but most likely that's happening October 3rd. And so, yeah, we'll have the Galaxy Digital CEO on, and we'll get to talk to him more about how these Bitcoin mining companies have become data centers. Who said SoFi is trash yesterday? Yeah, it's like, people saying SoFi was trash. It's like, it's a little emotional. It's like, because the price action can change and then it's not trash anymore. So it definitely did not deserve the level of disrespect it was getting yesterday by the market, especially because we know Noda is going to put up a really strong Q4. And so you're getting SoFi to get a bit more momentum here. All right, we got 2 minutes, 2 minutes until this market opens. I think the majority of you said, oh, well, it's 50-50. 51% said red, 49% said green. It's time to see what we've got going on. The bell shouldn't be a Temu bell today. I think we fixed the issue yesterday. So the bell should be good. Oh, level 1 options. Yes, that is out there for SoFi. So some accounts now have level 1 options. That's another thing that is important. And we should hopefully get to see that expand to a lot more accounts. Hopefully over the next coming months. Amazon, again, we're in at 222. We'll see what happens with Amazon. This one's at 217. 210 is kind of the next target for us buying the dip. But let's see if it actually ends up getting there. And then, I think the big question of the day is, can Palantir, NVIDIA, and Hood kind of hold their levels? All three of these are kind of outperforming in the face of some of the red that we've seen this entire week. NVIDIA all-time highs, Hoodie breaking 142. So today we're going to see if that can continue. Tesla, we have deliveries tomorrow. That's going to be really important. So we'll see how Tesla ends up performing from there. And then we just got to see if we can end up getting through a Q4 beginning of October 1st without the blood from the potential shutdown, or not the potential shutdown, the actual shutdown that might potentially be shut down for a long time. So we're going to see. We're going to see how this ends up playing out today. Yes, the government is shut down. For those that are wondering, it was official last night. If you're watching from across the world, the United States government is shut down, and now the stock market will ultimately get to react to what that means for the government being shut down. ETH at 4,300, Bitcoin right there at 116. Again, you're getting some momentum on crypto in the pre-markets. And now, Wednesday, October 1st, 9:30 a.m., the stack market is officially open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. NVIDIA opens up at 185.70. That's up about 0.5% on the day. You got a little bit of red on NVIDIA, but so far not going down from those 185 levels, actually trying to break 186. Hoodie, 141.90, trying to go for the 142 open, which would be pretty incredible. Even if holding 140 would not be that bad, but you do have some green right there, or a little bit of red trying to go green at Hoodie, 141.83. Tesla, that's down about 1/3%. S&P goes down 0.5%. S&P was up 0.5% yesterday, ended out September in a pretty strong way. S&P is down. Grab goes down 1%, below 6 right at the open. We are down on Grab. Google, wow, 238. Google down 2. Did not expect to see that. Really did not expect to see Google. I mean, I know we lost 250. That's okay. Losing 240 is a little weird. I wonder if it's headline driven, if it's because of the Reddit news, or might be something else. Reddit right there down about 7.5%. Amazon down 1%. Meta down 2.3%. Salesforce is actually up. Apple's up. ETH is up. Bitcoin is up. Those aren't really tanking as the market gets open. Marathon is up a little bit. Circle, that's up. So some of the crypto plays getting some momentum. Enphase is up. MicroStrategy getting a little bit of a rebound, given that Bitcoin's up. That's up 3%. And then HIMS is down 1% as well. Nike, did we gap up or gap down? We are flattish. I mean, it's up 4%, but that's where it was in the pre-market or in the after hours yesterday. So it did get to 74.50, then broke down to 73. If it holds the 4%, I think that's a pretty still good move after earnings. But we got to see if that continue. Wow, do I actually say stack? Does it actually sound like stack, bro? Everyone's saying stack. I guess the stack market is open. I guess that's how I say it. CoreWeave, that's down 1%. Rock Lab, that's down 0.5%. Coinbase is up 1.4%. Meta, this one fell below 730 yesterday. Wow, 720 on Meta. Okay, folks, big tech's taking a beating. Big tech is taking a bit of a beating besides NVIDIA. besides NVIDIA and Tesla. And I think besides Apple right here. So Mag 7, Amazon. No, honestly, it's not even big tech. It's Meta and Google. That's weird. NVIDIA's barely down. Tesla's down 1%. Apple's actually up. Amazon's down like $1. Meta or Microsoft's down $1. Google and Meta are the ones that are. Meta's down $15, bro. Huh. Meta did acquire some AI company yesterday. We don't have the details on how much they paid for it, but they acquired some company. Maybe that's why the street's taking it down a little bit. SoFi right there at 1.2%, trying to get back to 27. Grab just below $6. Hoodie holding 141. It might break 141, but it's at least holding in the 140s. And then NVIDIA just above 185. TSM and Apple is green. TSM is green and Apple is green. 256. Carvana, is that one down? Is AppLovin down? Carvana is up as well. So that's going the opposite of a lot of different directions. And then MicroStrategy continues to go up. AMD is that's weird, bro. Google and Meta. I wonder what's happening there. AppLovin, is it an advertising thing? AppLovin is also down 1.2. Maybe TTD is down. Maybe all the ad companies are getting, no, TTD is up. If advertising was really taking a hit today for whatever reason, you have, Google, Meta would be down along with every other major ad company in the sector. Doesn't seem like that's the case. SMCI, that's down 0.5%. Rocket Lab, 48. Rocket Lab getting some momentum here along with ASTS. It just hit 48 now, just below. Neo's looking strong. Neo was stuck at 3 for the majority of the year. So yes, Neo breaking above 7 is nice to see. 769. Oh, Lithium Americas, the Secretary of Energy confirmed an official equity stake of about 10%. 5% would be in one part of the business, 5% in another part of the business. This one actually is down. It was at $8 last night. So at 698, unfortunately, if you bought in the high 7s, you are bag holding right here. But if you did buy in the low 5s, you have some green. So this one is down from where it was at its height, but still up 22% on the day. Zeta acquired a company. That's why that stock is up 9%. Not sure exactly the synergies behind the company they acquired and their business, but obviously the acquisition looks accretive, which is why the stock is up, which usually stocks go down on the acquisition news. It looks like they paid $325 million to buy Marigold Enterprise. $325 million, $200 million is up originally, $125 million on performance, $100 million in cash, $100 million in stock. Not a horrible deal for a company like Zeta. That's not the biggest company in the world. And I guess the qualitative elements of Marigold is what's getting the street to be excited. 2162 on Zeta. SoFi 27. Okay, there you go. SoFi breaking through 27, just underneath that. So you're starting to see a little bit of momentum up there. Robinhood still going down, 140.7. NVIDIA kind of normalizing at 185.50. Grab, quick reversal from 595 to 604. Grab's volume has been dying out a bit. It used to be like 100 million a day for like a week, and now it's closer to like 30, 40 million. So still decent volume, but the volume is dying down. And so likely another catalyst is going to be needed, including earnings, to get that volume to come back up. Pinterest right there, that's down about 1%. ASTS, that's up 7%. MicroStrategy's up 3%. Uber's up 0.5%. Do we get any data this morning besides ADP private payrolls? Again, that came in at negative 32,000 versus 50,000 expected. 2 months in a row of negative jobs in the private sector in the United States of America. That's definitely not the best for the labor market. It is better for the idea of rate cuts. By the way, the probability of rate cuts, 99%. Yeah, that labor market report, very, very conducive to the idea of rate cuts. So I think that was at like 84% a couple days ago. Now it's at 94. Oh, we get a lot of PMI, folks, in about 10 minutes. We get a lot of PMI. We get manufacturing PMI at 9:45, and then at 10 a.m. we get ISM, employment, new orders, and prices for manufacturing. So we got a ton of different numbers coming out today that we'll take a look at. Reddit getting a little bit of recovery. It was down 10. Now it's down 6 at 216. Grab 607. A nice little move from 595. S&P, that's still down about 0.2, but not down as much. Tesla goes green. Tesla goes green. Tesla and Amazon touching green. Okay, so now Meta and Google. Meta still down below 720. There's got to be some headline that's affecting Meta. Maybe it's Sam Altman released a new app yesterday for OpenAI called Sora. And essentially it's this image generation, video generation app. Maybe that's being compared to Meta's AI video app that was put out a week ago. Now, whether it's Meta, Nano Banana, Sora, whatever company it is, there's going to be a lot of GPUs and compute that are needed to produce these types of videos at the way that they're being produced. So I think it all comes back to NVIDIA. PayPal right there, that's up a little bit. Alpha's up a little bit. Apple's up 1.5. Wow, Apple making a big move. We are seeing a rotation, folks. Apple and Bitcoin, again, a $4 move on Apple is a massive move. Apple's, almost a $4 trillion company. Right now, market cap is 3.84, not that far away. And Bitcoin kind of leading the way at 116.6. BM&R, are we getting above 55? We are 54.20. It actually fell all the way to 53 right when the market opened. Now it's right back to 54.20. So you're seeing a V shape right there, at least on BM&R. Why is BM&R up a bit? Because Ethereum is up. Ethereum up 4% gets BM&R up about 4.2%, which kind of logically makes sense as well. And yeah, that MNAV continues to expand. Hopefully it can gain more momentum if Ethereum goes up. Oscar, is that green? Oscar's green. 3.9. 3.9. Zeta's up 9%. It's a little bit of a picker's market right here. I mean, you got some names that are just getting hit bad. Iran just going green. Baba is up 1%. VIX is down a little bit. Actually, no, VIX is up a little bit. VIX is still below 17, but it's up 1%. SOFI, there you go, above 2.2. AMD still red. Reddit still red. Grab a nice recovery from 595 to 609. Did not expect that quick for it to reverse, but you do have a reversal there, and Meta still down about 2%. Tesla 448. All right, so deliveries are tomorrow. Looks like you're getting, look at that action on Tesla, dude. Just heavy momentum on the green. I will check 449 resistance. But those deliveries tomorrow are definitely going to be very, very important to see if the Tesla story can continue. 449, we broke it. All right, 450. It touched 450 yesterday, then it fell right back down. $450 a stock for Tesla is 117,000 shares. 117,000 shares that you've got. Joby, how's that one doing? It's flat on the day. Intel is up about 1.64. And then Netflix still down about 2%. I mean, we're going to see the extent of what this political backlash is going to do to Netflix stock. Again, no analysts that cover the company on Wall Street have actually come out and spoken about the backlash. And you remember, Duolingo had to deal with something that's not exactly the same, but Duolingo got caught up in some controversy over they're going to be replacing a ton of employees with AI, and people started boycotting them because of all the jobs that they were potentially going to fire. And that actually led to monthly active users declining for the first time in basically Duolingo's history, month over month. So, I mean, maybe that has an impact on Netflix. And Netflix is a way bigger company than Duolingo. Duolingo right there down about 1.3%. But we're going to have to see if the actual analyst community feels that it's an issue. Netflix right there, still down. Tesla 446. 4, we know Tanner's into this one. Shift 4 payments. That one's down a little bit on the day. And PayPal, 67.13. That one is still flat. That one is still flat. Misty's starting to recover. Well, MicroStrategy is recovering a little bit. So Misty, there you go, 14.28. I think MicroStrategy closer to like 380-ish is where you get Misty, hopefully around that 18-19 range. So we'll take a little bit of time. SoFi now starting to break out a little bit more above 27, but you're going to need Bitcoin to kind of outperform. Open Door, how's that one doing? She's down. Now, the one thing about Open Door that I think is really good is that it's been normalizing around 7 to 8. And I know, everyone wants it to go to 82, but if it doesn't go to 82 and it stays stuck between 7 or 8, I mean, it's still up from 50 cents earlier this year. So it's still a massive, massive return. And if it can actually build a base of shareholders at this level and give the company a year to kind of turn things around, then I don't think that's the worst thing in the world for Open Door. But that one is down. Wow, grabby grab, 615. Dude, we should have sniped that 595. Every time it gets below 6, I feel like it's a buy. But then you never want to buy it, and then it goes to like 580, and then you're like, all right. But like, it's done a really good job not even touching below 590 for like a month. So I feel like under 6, when it gives you the opportunity, maybe it's not the worst thing. Grab right there, 617 on the day. BM&R, we still moving there, 53, 56. That's down from 54. We got PMI in 3 minutes. We'll take a look at that. Amazon slightly red, and then Meta still red on the day. Meta is still red. How about Merck and Pfizer? Merck, that's up 3%. Not too bad. Pfizer, that's up 2%. Again, they had that big deal with Trump yesterday. J&J, that's up 1% as well. It will be called the Trump RX program, where people can get supposedly discounted drugs via Medicaid and Medicare through Pfizer. And so that could be something that potentially impacts that company and the entire pharmaceutical sector as well. Do you have any thoughts on CRISPR Therapeutics? Honestly, I don't know enough about that industry, but ARC-G, I feel like, is the way to play it, because Kathy's team has done a lot of research on genomics, and the amount of time it takes just to even understand the science around genomics, I think, is really hard. But is there a convergence between therapeutics and AI? 1000%. And I do think ARC-G, if you don't want to think that deep into it, is like the best way to get exposure. But I personally don't own this one. Does Adobe below 350 look good? Look, Adobe at these levels, of course, looks good. Anyone who's gone through the numbers of Adobe will tell you it is cheap, it is undervalued, and the stock likely goes higher. Robinhood, by the way, back above 142. The problem with Adobe is the same thing with Duolingo. They have this narrative that they're not actually taking advantage of AI, that something like Sora or Google's Nano Banana is going to commoditize a lot of the sort of generative parts of AI, aka generating images and videos, which is, Adobe's thing, right? Because they're an editing software. And that the average person doesn't need to pay 30, 40 bucks a month to use something like Adobe when they can just use Grok Imagine for free. So that narrative, I don't know if that easily goes away on Adobe. And that's why I think the stock's been dead all year. But the numbers look pretty good. I mean, it's hard to say the numbers don't look decent on Adobe. SoFi right there, 27.26. Grab 620. Okay, cool. 620. Hopefully we are potentially done consolidating in the low sixes. If we make our way back there again, I think people are just going to buy that dip after it reaching back up to 620. That's showing really productive price action. Maybe we can make our way back into the 640s where we were last week. PMI should be out in about 1 minute. Let's see. By the way, speaking of Kathy, has anyone seen the performance of RKK? It's up 80%. Is it 80% or 50? It's up 50% this year. It's up 80% over the past year. I mean, it's massively beat a lot of the indices. And I know this ETF has hurt a lot of people in 2021, but definitely has not had the worst year on a year-to-date performance perspective. All right, global manufacturing PMI comes in at 52. Street wanted 52. Came in line with expectations. 52, Street wanted 52. Came in line with expectations. Now, Canada's manufacturing PMI came in at 47.7. Street wanted 48. So that one's slightly lower than expected. They are both down month over month, Canada and the US. Last month, we had 48.3 in Canada, 53 in the US. We came in at 47.7 and 52 today. We get manufacturing PMI for ISMs at 10 a.m. But we are above 50, which is good. That means we are expanding, not contracting. S&P kind of close to going green right there. You got a little bit of a green candle. If we can break green, that would be awesome. Robinhood potentially trying to make its way to 143 again, which would be awesome. But 52 is what we got for manufacturing PMI, which is not bad. I mean, given the labor market data today of ADP roles, ADP private payrolls, if that came in like at 50, you would get bad labor market, bad manufacturing data, which would be two things that would actually put a constraint potentially on corporate earnings, which is why stocks would get hit. But it doesn't look like you're seeing that as easily. So does the shutdown not really have any effect? Yeah, kind of. I mean, I showed this chart this morning, but Bloomberg did a study of all the shutdowns since 1976, and the average move during a shutdown has been 8 days of an actual lasting shutdown, and the stock market is flat. It's literally up 0%, down 0%. If you take an aggregate of all the shutdowns we've ever had. So if we do get some massive, massive dip, I mean, again, it gets bought. It's probably going to get people that step in. You would have to have something really category breaking on the overall variety of intersections that are playing out in the market right now when it comes to AI capex, when it comes to Fed rate cuts, when it comes to labor market weakness. I mean, there's so many different trends that are intersecting that are showing that, hey, we probably are going higher if the trend on corporate earnings is strong and rates are coming down. And a government shutdown doesn't change that. By the way, Robinhood just touched 143.14, now back to 142. So we did break 143 on the day, which is incredible. That's the second day in a row of holding above 143. And if we can get there, that would be very exciting. So again, it's just like the government shutdown, it's going to have to bring with it some more implications than just the government is shut down to deny some of these broader macro themes. And that's another argument that I think, the bears, they have their bear thesis, but it's like there's a lot of different ways to come up with why equities are a place to park your money. There's a lot of different narratives. And I mean, a weak dollar in and of itself is a narrative. So you would just need a lot of juice to the argument that a government shutdown is so bad. There you go, Robinhood back to 143. I don't know if we necessarily are seeing that. Google right there, that's recovering from 238 to 241. Reddit, that's down about 6%. Then Amazon, that is still flat. Nebius, are we still holding 111? 112. Meta, are we actually going down? We are going down. 717, that's down 2.2. All right, so here's the question. What is the price where you buy Meta? What is the price where you buy Meta? What either specific price or range of prices? Like below 700, do people take a stab at Meta? 705? You have to wait till 650. Like, how bad of a dip do we think we can get? Because Meta is one of the only opportunities I see. I say opportunity, not saying that it's the best opportunity, but just saying it's one of the only red big cap names that's actually giving you somewhat of a dip. I mean, even Google from 250 to 240 is not really a dip, but Meta's down from 780 to 717. So maybe that is a little bit better of an opportunity. Got a lot of people saying never. That's fair. And a lot of people don't like Zucks and like the business itself. I see most people saying just below 700. I see most people saying either 700 or 690-ish. I think that's the same for me. If we get a below 700, I think we take a little nibble at it. I think the thing that's pissing off people is Zuck says he's ready to spend as much as he wants and he doesn't care about the implications of that, which, look, I like that because he's aggressive on where this AI party is going, but who knows? Could that affect their business? Now, granted, I thought that would affect their, like, dude, he was talking about all the spending last quarter, and I thought that would affect their margins. They destroyed earnings. Like, the core ad business is so freaking good that, like, it didn't matter how much they lost on Reality Labs or how much they lost on labor for, like, high-skilled talent for AI. Like, the overall business is just doing so good. So if we don't have any weakness in the economy and that continues, then I think Meta probably goes higher. By the way, Zuck's got $179 million in dividends yesterday because Meta distributed their dividends. So given his share count, he gets a nice little $200 million dividend check every quarter. NVIDIA, are we still below 185? Just below it, 184.20. We did hit 186 today, which was nice. Yes, I would love Meta to do a split as well. That wouldn't be the worst thing. What else? Let's see. U.S. Treasury eases tax rule that threatens Strategy's Bitcoin pile from the Wall Street Journal. This was yesterday, the reason behind MicroStrategy running. I saw this headline, didn't read too much into it, but that along with Bitcoin is probably why Bitcoin moving to 116 is probably why you're getting some momentum. The tax rule that was messing up Strategy's Bitcoin pile was an issue that Saylor's been talking about for a while, and he's been wanting the U.S. Treasury, the SEC, someone to kind of offer some closure, some conclusion to how he was going to navigate that as a company. And it looks like they came through yesterday. Again, Trump's SEC, Trump's Treasury, very, very friendly to crypto. There was that headline 2 days ago about the NASDAQ getting ready to unveil tokenization of stocks and the SEC approving the tokenization of stocks on blockchain. So you are getting a lot more of a friendlier environment to the companies like Coinbase, Kraken, Robinhood, et cetera, that are engaging in tokenizing equities. Robinhood right there, just below 142. Accelera, that's up 11% on the day. That's nice. Wow, 554. Not sure if there's anything fundamental there. Maybe there's a new drug study that came out, but that one's getting green. That's up. Fermi, is everyone getting their allocations right now? FRMI, they will go public again probably at around 1 p.m. Someone said I got 19 shares of Fermi. All right, so let me know for those that are getting shares. How many people can get. Resolve, let's take a look at that one. 594. Wow, that's up 19% on the day. Not sure if there was a headline there. I know that one is becoming stock that people like in regards to AI. Oh, they had earnings today. Earnings, gross profit margin of 95%, 2025 AR guidance 150 million, 2026 guidance 500 million. Huh. Not bad. It's not a horrible earnings. Again, I don't know much about this company, but the guide they're giving on earnings along with the gross margin seems relatively decent. It's not too bad. All right, so that one getting a move. That's up 19%. Grabby grab, breaking above 620. Not bad, dude. Got a nice green candle right there. We got to hold above 620, but if we can, that is not too bad at all. Being able to get to this level. Yeah, around 1 p.m. 1 p.m., you should expect that IPO. Maybe it's a little bit earlier than that, but usually 12 to 1 is when they go live. We'll check fear and greed in a second as well, along with the heat map. Let's pull this up right here. Tesla again going a bit green, robbing it back to 142, grab at 620. Heat map on the day. What do we got? Pretty red. Pretty red. Google and Meta getting the worst of it. Apple's actually getting the rotation. Walmart red today as well. Interesting. Healthcare goes green. Everything else is red. Yes, Tesla sales from 9 to 9:15 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. We'll get those numbers. Street's expecting 447,000 cars to be sold in Q3, or delivered, I should say. And we'll find out tomorrow what that looks like. But around 9:15, we'll know. What are your thoughts on GitLab? I don't love this name. I know Jose is actually a big fan of it. So he is someone who does like this name. I have never dived super deep into them. Google was going to buy these guys out back in 2021. It never ended up happening, but Google was acquiring a lot of shares at the time. Yeah, I mean, Jose likes it. He thinks they are playing a better role in the broader semiconductor ecosystem along with what they do with software. So you do have a bit of momentum there. GitLab, that's down about 0.5% on the day. Palantir, that's almost green, 182.40. Again, yesterday was the 5th anniversary of Palantir going public since September 30th, 2020. So 5 years of them now being a public company. 182.28, and then Robin right here, 141.65. As a developer, I love GitLab. Yeah, I mean, as a core product, I think a lot of people have spoken about the benefits of it as a developer ops platform as well. Just never been that interested in the actual stock. Reddit down 7%, Amazon down 0.5%, Meta still down 7.13, bro. Do we nibble at Meta here? Why is Meta down? That is the question. Who has a theory for why Meta's down? Meta. Maybe this is the reason, guys. Meta will soon use your conversations with its AI assistant to personalize the ads you see on Facebook and Instagram. The day has come. Meta will start using people's conversations with its AI chatbot to help personalize ads and content. The changes mean that if users ask Meta AI chatbot for nearby hiking recommendations, for instance, they might start seeing ads on Instagram and Facebook for hiking boots or other gear, as well as hiking-related content from creators in their feeds. While people won't be able to opt out from having their chats used for personalization, the content of some conversations will be automatically excluded, including religious, political views, health, racial, etc., to customize ads. Interesting. Meta's not had a day, and I would say a year, where something came out about their privacy policies that actually caused people to be disgusted enough to sell the stock, which is what's happening, right? It's either that or it's just algos being stupid. But I feel like people don't like that new policy update, and maybe that's happening. However, to give the other perspective, isn't Meta already doing this with every other piece of data that they interact with on Facebook, right? When you like something, when you leave a comment underneath a post, they analyze the text of that comment to figure out the next ad to serve you. Kind of feels like this is just the next evolution. By the way, I feel like ChatGPT and Google, they're going to use your chat data as well to start serving you better ads, and Gemini and ChatGPT is already working on advertising inside of their products. So it doesn't seem like this is not going to be universal across the AI chatbot war. It really doesn't feel like that big of a deal. I mean, obviously, everyone gets annoyed when they see this type of stuff, but every single company is going to be doing this. Now, granted, Meta doesn't have the best history with user privacy and data, so when headlines like this come out, people just get so annoyed by it. But it feels like that's the reason. It's kind of weird seeing the sell-off, dude. Like, I doubt an institution that owns Meta is like, hey, we're so upset that user data is going to be inside of this chatbot and be used to make better ads. We're selling our Meta. Like, I really doubt any major institution that holds this stock sees that headline is like, yeah, I'm selling. They're probably like, no, that's why I bought in the first place, right? So that is a bit weird. But maybe there's something else. Morgan Stanley raises their price target on Robinhood to 146 from 110. I did not see that. Morgan Stanley, there you go. Price target upgrade. Goldman Sachs is the street lead now at 152 on Hoodie. But these price targets now in the 130s and 140s definitely will help to normalize Robinhood in that range. Investing hikers are pissed off. Dude, I remember the first time I got scared of Meta. I remember I was in college, bro. I had just come back from class. And for some reason, I remember this like it was yesterday. That's why I remember the details. I was waiting for the bus, and I really wanted a Twix. Does anyone know the Twix chocolate bar? For some reason, I wanted a Twix. I didn't search for Twix. I didn't see a Twix commercial. I just don't know why I wanted a Twix, but I wanted a Twix that day. And I just thought to myself, man, I would love to have a Twix right now while I was waiting for the bus. And then I get on the bus, and I go on Instagram, and I start scrolling, and I swear on my life, a Twix ad popped up, and I almost dropped my phone. Grab right there above 621. I was like, there is no way. I didn't search for it. I didn't say it out loud. Their microphone. I was like, they are actually inside of my mind to show me that commercial. And I know you guys have had that experience before. You've had to have that experience. And that was what, 2017? I should have bought Meta stock at that moment. I think it was trading at like $50. At that moment, I should have figured out how to own this company, because that shit was ridiculous. And that should have told me anecdotally, they're going to build one of the best advertising products on the planet. I whispered it, bro. I really don't think I didn't search it. I didn't whisper. I don't think I did anything. I really think they read my mind and they figured it out. It was crazy, bro. But like, again, that's what Meta has been able to build, and the user privacy stuff, although it matters, I wonder how much the street cares about. 7-Eleven, Meta continuing to go down 3% on the day. 7-Eleven right here on Meta. I didn't even get the Twix. No, I didn't. Did you go to a 7-Eleven and get one? Yeah, Meta price at 7-Eleven. No, I didn't even get the Twix that day. I don't know why I was thinking about it, but I remember it so deeply because I was so surprised by the ad popping up. I don't know, maybe I saw a Twix in a vending machine or something while I was walking to the bus stand. Like, I have no idea how it popped in my mind, but I just had a natural human, like, oh, I would love a Twix right now. And then it pops up on Meta. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't. Okay, we get more ISM right now, 10 a.m. Let's see. What do we got? ISM manufacturing. Let me pull this up. ISM services. Are these numbers decent? All right, here we go. Manufacturing PMI for ISM, 49.1 versus 49 expected. That's a beat. Manufacturing employment, 45.3 versus 44. That's a beat. New orders, 48.9 versus 51.5. That's a beat. Manufacturing prices, 61.9 versus 63.6. That is also a beat because you've got some of those prices coming down. That's a beat across the board, folks. That is a beat across the board on ISM data. Is that helping the S&P? Not really. You're not getting a massive red candle. You're also not getting a massive green candle. Still down about 0.3. Robinhood from 142 to 140. Palantir 182.34. Tesla still green. It's kind of flat. Grab 618. Google's down 1%. SoFi 2670. AMD 162. AMD is actually getting a boost. Let's get a little bit more coverage on that data. So far, it looks not too bad. Looks like it is helping Amazon. That is correct.
49.1 would be the lightest going back to March of this year when it was 49 even. If we look at prices paid, and of course, we'd rather have this go down and reflect less inflationary.
It's helping Bitcoin, 117. Not helping the broader market yet, but definitely helping Bitcoin. S&P still flat. Bitcoin getting some new highs of the day.
Pressures comes in at 61.9, sequentially lower than 63.7. 61.9 will be the lightest of the year outside of January. So the second lightest number of the year. That is indeed good news. 48.9 on new orders. It is sub 50, and it is less than expectations and sequentially lower than 51.4 in the rearview mirror. 48.9. How does it stack up? That would be the lightest going back to July when it was 47.1. And finally, employment. After a very weak ADP and questionable whether we'll get the big jobs report on Friday, comes in 45.3. Better than expected, obviously in contraction territory. Also higher than last month's 43.8. 45.3 would be the best level going back to May of this year when it was 46.8.
So not that bad. Bitcoin actually breaking through. Dude, this thing was at 109 on Saturday. Nice to see Bitcoin breaking through, and that continues to help Robinhood as well. So Robinhood right there at 141, S&P at 664, Google trying to recover. Is Meta still getting hit? Did we break 710? Bounced off 711.7. Bounced off 711.7, now at 715. Maybe that was the bottom. Let's see if it retests that 711 level. But 715, that might be what the traders have been waiting for to come in and start buying. They wanted to see that bounce. ISM kind of corresponded exactly with that bounce. So maybe the ISM was good enough to get Meta getting some love. Look at that, back to 716. That's a pretty quick move, 711 to 716. Let's see if that was the actual bottom for Meta. And if the dip buyers come in, or if we revisit that. Uber, that's up a little bit. Hims is down 1%. PayPal's up 1%. AMD's up 1%. Tesla's up a little bit. Palantir goes green. Overall, ISM, not that bad. By the way, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is about to talk. We'll go over to him when he does talk, as he'll be commenting on the shutdown. But so far, PMI, not that bad. Netflix is still down 2.3. Clean Spark is up 4%, sorry, 1513. And Bitcoin is rolling, which is helping good old MStrat, MicroStrategy, which is helping Misty. Not bad. It's nice to see Bitcoin getting some love. Again, October, very, very friendly for Bitcoin. Starting off October 1st with some love. It's a good, it's a good 7,000 candle over the past 3 days. Not too bad to see that. App loving as well, getting some green. Cancel. Netflix is trending on Twitter. All right, yeah. I mean, Netflix is going to have to eventually either come out with a statement, or we're going to have to see what happens there. But you do have a bit of trends from, yeah, I see it right now. Cancel Netflix. Yeah, all right, that's trending, folks. Netflix is going to have to figure out how they want to navigate that. Ethereum right there, that's up 4.6. BMNR, can we break 54? 53.89, very close to breaking 54. Mercado Libre, let's see, that one down 3%. This one's been down all week. I don't know what's been happening on this one, but this one got hit. Speaker Johnson's live. Is he live? Okay, we'll see. Give me a second. And then Palantir right there, that's up a little bit. Do we have him? All right, let's see what he has to say.
The visitors here, family, you have school groups that come and visit. They walk these grounds. We have about 7,000 people who visit this Capitol each and every day. But today, that's not going to be the case. Today, America's boys and girls will walk up to these doors and they'll see something different, a sign that says closed until further notice. And that's because at midnight, the Democrats followed through on their threat to shut down the United States government. As we speak here this morning, there are hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are getting their furlough notices. Nearly half of our civilian workforce is being sent home. These are hardworking Americans who work for our federal government. Our troops and our Border Patrol agents will have to go to work, but they'll be working without pay. Food assistance, veterans benefits, and vital support for women and children are all coming to a halt. Now, thankfully, President, just a few months back in March, in exchange for that, they rejected it and they demanded something else. They wanted us to add over $1.5 trillion in new federal spending, paid for, of course, by hardworking American taxpayers at a current Biden level spending levels. We are not going to do that. We can't do that. We won't do it. Almost 2 weeks ago, the House did our job. In the House, we passed a common sense, nonpartisan bill to keep the government open. Republicans did our job. We had one Democrat join us there, so it was bipartisan. But every other Democrat in the House voted to shut the government down. And last night, 44 Democrats in the Senate did the same thing. This is a clean resolution. It would simply buy Congress a few more weeks, 7 weeks, to finish the job. Why do we need that time? So that appropriators in both parties can finish their work. They've been restoring regular order. They've passed 12 separate bills out of committee in the House, and the Senate has done its work as well. 3 bills of the 12 passed in each chamber. They don't line up exactly, so there's a conference committee constituted, the first time in years that that's happened. We just need more time because we ran out of clock at the end of the fiscal year, September 30. This is very important to note. Democrats themselves have voted to pass a clean bipartisan CR just like this 13 times in the last few years. During the 4 years of the Biden administration, 13 times this happened. Republicans did the responsible thing, even when we were in the minority, to keep the government open. And today should be no different. There is nothing new in this legislation. There's no poison pill. There's no partisan tricks. There's no gimmicks whatsoever. The only difference today is the man who is sitting in the Oval Office. Rather than work with President Trump and Republicans to get this job done, as our party has done repeatedly in the same situation over the years, Democrats want to play political games with the lives and the livelihoods of Americans. The simple truth is Democrats in Congress have dragged our country into another reckless shutdown to satisfy their far left base. That is the truth. Whether or not the government remains open or reopens is entirely up to them. There's still time for Democrats to pass this clean bipartisan bill that's sitting before them, and we encourage our Democrat colleagues to do that. I certainly pray they'll come to their senses soon and do the right and responsible thing. The reason they will have one more opportunity today is because of the sound leadership that is being provided in the U.S. Senate by our colleagues who are standing here with us. This is a joint.
So there will be a vote today. I mean, maybe the shutdown is over in 24 hours. We're going to see, but it looks like they will have another vote today.
Press conference, as you know, between leadership, Republican leadership in the House and the Senate. And I'm delighted to yield to my good friend and an extraordinary leader in the Senate, Leader John Thune.
Okay, folks. So we're going to see what ends up playing out right here. Obviously, there will be some implications based on how long this is going to last. But they are going to have another vote today. I mean, who knows? Maybe that vote is where they come together. Find it hard to believe that would happen. Pound right here, 183. But if it does, I mean, it would be kind of expected given the average shutdown tends to be about 8 days. PayPal right there is up 1%. Alpha is down a little bit. Let's go to the stock draft, get an update on how that's going. Matt's up 29.6. I'm up 34. Steve's up 5. Tanner's up 23. And Chris is up 8.7. So you got myself, Matt, Tanner, Chris, and Steve as the current stock draft rankings. So that's what we got going on for the stock draft. Again, a lot of stocks starting to flip a bit into the green, like in Amazon, PayPal, and Salesforce. Meta back to 713. 711 was the low, broke to 717. Now it's right back to 713. If it breaks 711 again, I think we have a little bit of a downtrend here. 711.70, that's the price you're looking for. If it breaks below that, maybe we start to get into that 704 level. Tesla, are we moving? Tesla finally moving again. 450, that's the third time in a row today. It hit 450. Actually breaking above it. Very volatile right here, but maybe going for a 451 move. Fell all the way to 440 after hitting 450 for the first time. And now that's down. Micron finally making a move as well. This one had a great earnings. Deserves to get to 170. There you are. Galaxy, how's that one doing? That's up 4%. How about Marvell? This has been a big winner over the past couple of weeks, even if it was bad on earnings. That one's down about 2%, but still breaking through the 80s. Tesla, again, just below 450. Bitcoin, are we above 117? We're at 117.2. I mean, a 120 Bitcoin would be very nice to see over the next few days. Amit, I have a 145 hood covered call for 1017. What do you think I should do? I don't think you should do anything yet. And the reason for that is, look, if you had like a 140 covered call, I would say roll it. But you have some room to breathe with 140 to 145. And number two is Robinhood's got to normalize the 140s. And, you know, it's been less than a day of it holding the 140. So I want to see over the next coming days, can it actually hold 140 and stay here? You're probably gonna have to roll maybe next week if it gets to that 143, 144 range. But I would hold steady. I wouldn't be too eager to roll yet. I'll give it a couple days. If you can hold the 140s, then I'd probably roll and then just try to get to like 150 and get out by the end of October. But 140.96 is where we are. If you're in the 130 covered calls, I would be rolling. At this point, you got to get out of the way. You just can't take the risk now. You got to get out of the way. I mean, it's Robinhood's re-rating, and you just don't want to be in the middle of that re-rating. Tesla right there, 449. AMD, that's up 1%. Yeah, we barely traded in the 130 range for a long time, so I expect us to go back there, and it would not be surprised. But if we can normalize the 140s, that would also be very good. Reddit right here, that's still down 7%, so Reddit's getting hit. Netflix is still getting hit as well. SMRs, how about this one? NewScale, that's up a little bit. Oklo's up a little bit. And the Nanonuclear, that's up a little bit. The S&P is still basically flat. I mean, it's down 0.25, but the PMI data was pretty good. So you're not seeing that much pain. Let's get a little bit of coverage on what Speaker Johnson said and kind of how some people are thinking the shutdown ends up implicating the broader markets.
Dismissals, firings, we'll see how long this lasts. Certainly economic data, another casualty in the shutdown for now. Let's bring in Trivariate's Adam Parker now as the shutdown gets underway and we kick off trading for October and Q4. Adam, good to have you with us.
How are you?
I'm good. A lot of discussion about what a pleasant surprise September was in Q3 and NDX up 9. You think that can continue into Q4?
Wow, Meta loses 7-11. Hits 710, bro. What is going on with Meta today? Huh. 710. This gets kind of interesting here. Is it really breaking below 700? Yeah, 8 days in a row down for Meta. Is this a little bit of the October dip opportunity? I don't know. I don't know. Is Google dipping with it? Google right here, 2.4. Google not as aggressive as Meta. I mean, they've both been down for the past couple of weeks. You got Meta at 710. Let's see if she breaks 710. Let's see if she actually gets into the low single digits for 700s, or if this part can be somewhat of support.
And how does the shutdown play into that?
So yeah, two things to unpack there. I mean, if you look back in history, we looked at 98 years of data. 39 times the market was up in the first 3 quarters, 10% or more. And in those years, the Q4 was better than average with lower volatility than average. So history would say Q4 should be pretty good just based on the fact that people don't lock in strong returns typically. They chase more. So that's kind of the first thing you said. In terms of the shutdown, look, I would say the statistical significance is low. We had that 35-day period in 2018, 2019. We've had several other shorter ones. I think institutional investors I talk to are kind of taking I don't think I should position for it differently now sort of view, and then we'll see if we have to worry about it. So I said, I don't know anybody who's doing a lot of trading around it at the current moment.
Right. One thing's for sure, your healthcare trade is finally coming around. the healthcare index back to April levels now.
And I think, his broader point about people just not positioning themselves up or down and just waiting for the volatility to end via the shutdown because it might not be as volatile is something that a lot of people might be embracing. Tesla almost broke 451. It was at 450.80 and now it's down back to 449. Again, it's really trying to break that level, but not that easy. By the way, we got a new partnership right here. Amazon and the NBA. Amazon and the NBA just announced a multi-year partnership to power the league's next generation of innovation as AWS will become the official cloud and cloud AI partner of the NBA and its affiliate leagues. Okay, so you got an NBA Amazon partnership. That's not really moving Amazon too crazy. Meta 713, a little bit of a recovery from 710. I mean, very slight move up. S&P, that's down 0.22. Tesla still below 450. Hoodie back at 141. Palantir 183. And then Amazon still flat on the day. Not moving much. Yeah, I mean, look, Sora could be a reason for why Meta's down. I don't know if that's the biggest reason. I think it's more so that ad privacy stuff from the Wall Street Journal. But again, even that I don't think is that big of a reason why people will get upset about it. Maybe it's just maybe it's just rebalancing going to Q4. Meta and Google were big winners for a lot of people. And so maybe both of those getting sold off at the same time. But it doesn't seem like there's anything that fundamental. And, it's not like Meta is egregiously expensive in the 700s either. Meta at the 200-day would be amazing. I mean, dude, we get anywhere into that 670, 680 range. I would probably be a very quick buyer at that point. And I think, one of the things about buying the dip in October is like, it's October 1st, right? We've had 30 minutes of the market being open for Q4. I think we do have to see what the trend turns out to be in October. Maybe the trend starts in a couple of days. Maybe it starts next week. Maybe, we just grind along higher and we oscillate between 1% up, 1% down. But until we kind of see what exactly is going on for the month of October, which needs a little bit more time, hard to get super, super excited about any dip or super, super euphoric about any potential trend to the upside. Should have bought in 2022. Yep. I mean, dude. No, so I actually made a video a while ago about why I sold Meta to buy Palantir. I bought Meta at 300. I sold it at 240. And I took all the money from that and I put it into Palantir at 12. But that was that officially made me like all in Palantir in 2022. Wasn't a ton of Meta, but whatever it was, I was like, you know what? I'm going with Carp over Zux. And then Meta ended up going all the way to 88. And I should have probably come back a little bit to Zux, but Palantir was at 6. So it's like everything was just such a screaming discount looking back in hindsight that kind of whatever you really, went all in on didn't do too bad. Tesla right there, 449.76. That's up 1.1. Hood again, 141. Where's copper today? CPOX. Okay, so I did make a trade yesterday. I bought 5 calls on CPOX. I bought 5 calls for April 2026, $60 strike. And I paid $5.75 for them. The reason I bought them is not even just because of the heavy copper thesis, because I've been talking about it for the past couple of days about commodities, the bull trend in commodities, data centers needing a lot more copper. The main reason I bought it is because my uncle is up like 80% on these calls. And he's been telling me about this shit for like 2 months and I've been ignoring him. And I already ignored him on silver. We were in India on a bus to a wedding and he was like, bro, silver, you got to buy silver. And I was just like, who cares about silver, bro? I don't care. And then, silver's done very well. So like he's having a little bit too many bragging rights right now. And so I said, you know what? If you're going to make money on copper, I got to be in this as well. Wow. Tesla 452. She's breaking out. Let's see 453 resistance. No, she touched 453. She touched 453 for a second. So let's check 454. See if that can break out. Right back to 453 right there. But yeah, he's the heavy into, dude, I didn't know he was buying. He has like hundreds of contracts and he bought them like super cheap. And he's like, bro, I've been telling you about copper. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, he's going to be bragging way too much if his copper thesis ends up playing out. So I'm like, I have to join him. 453.30, 454 resistance. Dude, it's nothing. It's like 7,000 shares. It's nothing. She can crack through 454. She can crack through. But in terms of being serious and why I bought it, I mean, yeah, I did buy it just because like messing around with my uncle as well and seeing like what the trade ends up being. But also, I mean, I do think he has a point. Commodities are in a bull cycle. Gold and silver are not showing signs of weakness. Copper's following. Usually when gold and silver do this well, historically, copper tends to follow. And COPX is not a copper ETF. It's a copper miner ETF. And the miners actually tend to do a lot better than the underlying asset. And a lot of people that have been in gold miners this year have seen how well those stocks have done. So yeah, they're basically at the money calls. It's at $60. I paid $5 for it. So it needs to be at 65 by April. And if the copper bull run continues or the commodity bull run continues, then I think hopefully those could do well. But we got to see if the trend in commodities takes place. Wow, Tesla broke through 454 like that was nothing. There were barely any shares. Dude, this is the high of the past couple of months, right? We haven't been in the 450s this easily. When's the last time we were at 450? Or am I tripping? No. We haven't. No, we literally haven't seen it. The closest we got to was 449.98 on September 29th, 3 days ago. So this is like a first in the past 9 months of finally breaking above 450. 455 resistance. Let me see. 77,000 shares. 77,000 thousand shares, which is not too bad. All-time high is 488. That is correct. All-time high is 488. All right, we got to see. Admit, did you buy Teslas in 330s? Yes, I bought 100 shares at 335. So that is my major Tesla position. I mean, look, I am not opposed to adding in the 400s. I just kind of want to get a little bit of a glimpse of Q3. Now, I think Q3 is going to be really good. And I think it's going to pump. Granted, it's already pumped a lot. So I don't know if it has a ton of room to run above the move that it's already made. I mean, Elon would have to have some really good progress on Q3. But in general, S&P closer to 7,000. Elon has good earnings. He talks about the Optimus bot. I mean, there's a world where Tesla gaps up heavily into that 500 range by end of year. So I don't think it's crazy, but the risk reward is definitely a bit aggressive here compared to like the 330s. And at the 330s, I also thought I wasn't getting the best deal in the world. So I'm happy it's done well, but we got to see if it can hold this momentum. 453.70 is now what you have on Tesla. ABC, I don't know why ABCL is pumping today. I have no idea. 14%, dude. That's a big move on this one. I'm going to have to text Arnie and try to get his thoughts, but I don't think there's any new updates or trials they released, but I think they have to have this type of a move. Resistance at 455 is, what was the number? 67,000 shares. 67,000. Pound is actually going for 184, baby. 4 cents away. No, we touched 184. Right back below. There you go. Back to 184. And then Robinhood holding 141. Grab holding 613, 612. App Lovin', that's green. And then Circle, that's up 2%. Where's Meta? Are we back to 720 yet? Meta 715. Down 2.5. Doug says, selling my Tesla on the America Party announcement was my worst trade ever since selling covered calls on Palantir. Dude, that American Party thing feels like it was years ago, but it was literally a couple months ago. And this stock got to 270 off that announcement. And it's so funny looking back on it because, like, bro, Elon, like, he'll say one thing and he'll just forget about it. Like, he was so inspired to take on the Democrats and Republicans and start some new party. And, like, not even a week later, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm probably not going to pursue that. Like, you've got to be such a steward of understanding Elon's personality if you're going to trade Tesla or hold on to Tesla. 455, there you go. Tesla breaking through those 70,000 shares at 455. Wow, that was a violent breakthrough as well. 455.55 now, 455.45. But you just have to look past that America Party stuff and be like, okay, I don't think you're going to do that, Elon. You have to it's almost like a child, right? You have to be like, nope, I don't think you're telling the truth of what you're saying. And I'm going to buy your stock regardless because I don't believe you. And that has ended up working out. NVIDIA right here, that's up 0.4%, 185.55. Palantir, 184.60. All right, let's see if she makes a move for 185. Micron, are we above 70, 173, 172.79, just below 173. Accelera's up 14%. Micron's moving. Palantir's moving. Tesla is moving. Big Bear AI, is that moving? That one's also moving. 6.80. That's up 4.29%. The ticker that I was talking about for copper is COPX. Again, this one has made a pretty big move. It's up 40% this year. So I didn't buy a lot of calls and I bought them at the money. I wouldn't go super out of the money. It's up 57% year to date. I bought 5 calls at 60. So theoretically, I don't think it's that crazy to get above 65 by April of next year. So not super degen on this, but I do think if the commodity bull cycle is intact, then copper should find a way to continue doing well. S&P right there. S&P is almost green, folks. S&P is almost green. I mean, if we go green on the day, that would be exciting. Nike, 4%. Tesla, 455.20. Let me check 456 resistance. 19,000 shares. Again, there's not a lot of shares stopping it from breaking through. 455.70. Tesla's going for it right here. Let's see. And then Palantir, 5 cents away from 185. No, we broke 185. We broke it. 185.13. 185.13. I mean, again, we are literally at the price that Citron shorted. So either they covered the short or they didn't, but we are at that same level. SOFI, that's up 2. S&P, very close to going green. Even NVIDIA joining the party. Look at that green candle. Do we have some news? Are we not shut down anymore? That's right before 10:32, right? The 10:30 slam. We're kind of getting either a head fake 3 minutes before it, or we're actually getting a little bit of an uptrend. No, I don't see any headlines. I saw PMI. We saw Johnson's comments. Nothing that would signal a massive green candle. Look at that on NVIDIA, trying to go for 187. Keep the government shut down. Yeah, might as well if this is what we get, dude. Does your uncle own silver physically? I think so. He owns a lot of silver stock for sure. I'm pretty sure he has some silver physically, but more into the ETF of silver, which is what he holds. Porter, thanks for the super chat. Amid, I have a covered call on Palantir with a 190 strike for October 31st. Any need to roll it out yet? No, I think you're good. Well, oh wait, you said 190. Well, I would still hold until you see us get closer to 190, like the 187, 188 range. We're at 185 right there on Palantir. Because again, 190 is all-time highs. So for Palantir to break above 190, you are going to need a pretty big move. I would hold on. We get closer to 187, 188. Yeah, I would roll. And that's an easy roll because you're so far out of the money, you can probably roll it out to like 210, 215 without too much of a concern. But I would wait to get to that 187, 188 range. Now, if you think the uptrend is heavy, and the only reason I'm being a little hesitant to roll right now is because 190 is all-time highs. So for Palantir to break that, that's going to be a big moment. And so you want to see if it can get very close to that. And then if it does, then you roll. But it is showing momentum right here. Tesla 456. She got there. 456. She's up $11 on the day. All right, 457. Resistance at 457. Again, when I say resistance, these are the number of shares that are willing to be sold on the order book. It's not always exactly accurate, but it gives us a little bit of a gauge of how hard it is to break through. 11,000 shares at 457. 11,000 shares at 457. Amit, I have a Tesla 450 covered call, but that doesn't expire until November. Roll early. Yeah, I would roll that. I mean, again, Tesla could be back down to 430 tomorrow, but when Tesla runs, she runs. And so if you're underwater on the cover call, I would roll it immediately, get out to like 500, 510, and give yourself some time. I think if we're headed into a strong Q4 with rates coming down, earnings doing well, labor market weakening enough for the Fed to continue cutting rates, and the broader AI CapEx trend being in place, along with retail sales and the consumer not being that bad, then there is a lot of momentum for a strong Q4, and that's where you want to get covered calls out of the way in case, a lot of stocks really do make a run. And so I would get out of it early. AppLovin right here, that's up 1%. TLT, that's up a little bit. Bitcoin still up 2.6, and then Ethereum 43. Is Bitmine joining the party? Bitmine still at 53.50. NVIDIA goes green. Wow, NVIDIA went green. 186.55 on NVIDIA. Very, 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 very close to breaking through 187. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Netflix recovering a little bit. Silver 48. Again, silver making a move as well. Gold's not stopping. Nubank's down 5%. So a lot of the Nubank bulls were excited about their announcement yesterday. I thought it was weird. They're bringing a bank charter to the United States. I don't know why they would want to compete in the United States where there's literally thousands of banks, and you already have new banks like SOFI competing for the millennial young generation, more internet savvy users. So it's like Nubank has a massive opportunity in Latin America, particularly in Brazil, but coming to the United States just feels a little weird. But it looks like they're trying to expand in the US. So I don't think the stock should be down 4% on that, but I didn't see that as super bullish. I just feel like that's a lot of competition in the US that maybe they don't want to spend that much time dealing with. But that stock is down 4%. Meta right there, 715. That's still down 3. Micron, 175. Great day for Micron. And then Nike, is it pushing 80? 72. Still at that 72 level. What government shutdown? Yeah. I mean, what what government shutdown, dude? So far, market's not necessarily reacting that bad. Trying to see if we have any other quotes from Johnson that were bullish that's getting the market to potentially get higher. Again, NVIDIA trying to break 187. Then Tesla losing 456 back to 453. Robinhood 141. Robinhood's been holding 140. And then Palantir 185. How about Rocket Lab? How's that doing? That's up 1.2%. Oscar, that's up 0.5% on the day. Lemonade, that is at 54.56. Walmart was down in the morning. Walmart's still down about 2.5. Looks like a bit of rotation from the defensives into tech and into crypto. And then Cisco, that's down as well. ASML, dude, what a recovery on freaking ASML. This one's been amazing. 988, up 2%. Almost back to 1,000. If you kind of held your nose and bought this thing at 650 this year, you've done very well. And it doesn't look like they are slowing down. Archer as well, making a move today. 6% up, $10.11. Thoughts on Amazon growing AWS and automation long-term hold? I think Amazon is the easiest long-term hold in the stock market. It's freaking Amazon. It's not going anywhere. In terms of a safer place to park money, Amazon's multiple is not like the cheapest multiple in the world, but is it safe in the context of, hey, in the next 10 years, is Amazon probably a bigger company than it is today? Yeah, I think so. Now, I bought 100 shares at 222 because it is now the worst performing Mag 7 year to date, and I don't think it deserves to be. And I think the Anthropic deal likely means you get some acceleration in AWS. And if you do, I don't see how the stock, if the S&P is around 7,000, stays stuck at these levels. So it's kind of like an Apple situation. When Apple was stuck at 198, I mean, if you bought it thinking we were going to have somewhat of a bull market, eventually Apple would re-rate and there would be some good news and there would be, Apple iPhone 17 upgrade cycle. Like there's always something that gets these very, very, very large companies to gain momentum. And I think Amazon eventually will see it. Wow, 187 NVIDIA. 187, she's back. She is back. You cannot hold her down that easily. You cannot hold her down that easily. Finally, back to 187. 187.35 is the all-time high. We got to see if she can break that. Would you roll a covered call on NVIDIA for 1010? No, I would not roll that. I mean, for 200, no. If you're at 190, yeah. 200 by October 10th on NVIDIA, I do not see that happening. I think that's a bit tough. 10 days to get to 200. Again, every dollar up on NVIDIA is $25 billion in market cap. That's not the easiest move to make, especially without a major catalyst. So I think 200s are fine, but 190s I'd probably roll just in case. Even 190 I think is a little aggressive in 7 days. But 200 I think you're okay. Why are stocks a she? Because they drive you crazy, bro. Obviously, that's why I said, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Don't get offended. Any women in the chat. I love everybody, but it's like they drive you crazy, bro. Like, one day they're up, one day they're down. It's like, come on, bro. Like that is the best definition you could get. I don't think there's another definition that could be more appropriate. Dude, if I ever run for president, the amount of clips that are out there, like, there's so many more. Dude, there are more clips from when I was first starting out. Dude, when you have 200 viewers and you're first starting out, you kind of just say anything, bro. You really don't care. Like, it kind of has to hit you in the face that, like, there are other people watching. You can't just, like, say all this shit. By the way, NVIDIA, new all-time highs, baby. 187.50. 187.50. So back in 2022, your boy was a little wild with some of the stuff he was saying. But, we've calmed down. We've toned down. This guy really said if I ever run for president. It's funny. I was the only one born in America in my family. Everyone else was born in India. So I'm the only one who has a chance to even run for president. But I would never want to do that. I mean, like, I care too much about the markets. And how could I do a market open if I had to run the country, bro? Like, that'd be a little tough. Imagine live streaming market open from the Oval Office every morning with the president of the US, bro. Like, Dude, the stock market would have to love it. The stock market would have to love it. They're like, oh, Amit's going live. Let's see what stock he talks about today. That would be crazy. 187.50. I mean, Trump basically does this theoretically because he talks so much about the market. He doesn't do a market open, but he absolutely moves the market. 187.50, dude, that's a big move. Let's see 188 resistance if NVIDIA can crack through. Content in chief, exactly. Be very nice to break above 188. Amit would be the ultimate traders president. Dude, you cannot convince me. You cannot convince me. 188, 121,000 shares. 121,000 shares. You cannot convince me that there has never been a moment where Trump got a little bit of information from someone associated with some stock and that Trump didn't at some point say something about that stock knowing that someone told him about something. I mean, like, I feel like throughout the history of him being president, the first term and the second term so far, there's definitely been like, hey, Trump, can you mention this? And Trump, like, I mean, and we've seen the most egregious forms of it with Intel, obviously, and Lithium Americas and the meme coin and all this stuff. But I feel like that's had to have happened, bro. It's had to have happened. Yeah, Trump literally tweeted a pic of him trading stocks in the Oval Office. But it's crazy because when you're the I mean, you would think like that you would be investigated for that SEC, but it's like if you control all the people who are in the SEC, who are doing all and the DOJ, it's like you kind of get away with it, which just goes to show how much power the president actually has. Did Kushner not tell you? No, he did not. He did not tell me that. I told you guys though, Jared Kushner does not pick individual stocks. He's all in ETF. One thing he did tell me though, and I think I told you guys this a while ago, the day that Trump got elected. So Kushner, pretty much all of his personal net worth and liquidity, like obviously he has a lot of assets. He's like worth $8-9 billion, but his personal liquidity was all in treasuries. All of it was in treasuries. The day that Trump got elected, he switched all of it from treasuries to index funds, S&P, NASDAQ, all that stuff. So he's told me November 4th or November 5th, the day that Trump got elected, he called his advisors and he said, take it out, all out of treasuries, put it into the market. So he's a pretty conservative investor. He really doesn't pick individual stocks, but he is bullish on Trump as the leader. And that's when he transitioned from treasuries. NVIDIA 187.60. Wow. Made another all-time high just below 187.60 right there. But it is green. It is still green. What a boring port. Dude, that's what I told him. I was like, bro, you don't pick individual stocks? Right? He's like, nope. I was like, so you wouldn't like go out and buy like Google or Apple? He's like, very rarely would we ever buy an individual stock. He's a very Charlie Munger type of investor. Like he talked a lot about Munger. And, you know, Munger, I mean, the discipline that it took for Munger to buy an individual name, I mean, you're talking about years of research for Munger to even think of buying a stock. So he comes from that generation. Whereas, you know, some of us are like, oh, Fermi, IPO, energy. Okay, cool. I'm buying in 1,000 shares, right? You know, so it's a totally different mindset from his perspective versus some of the other types of investors in retail. But yeah, most of it's more ETF. NVIDIA still moving, 187.30. MicroStrategy 5%, and then ASTS up 8%. Going 100% bonds to 100% equities in a single day isn't that conservative. That's fair, but remember, the stock market was pretty good in 2023, 2024. So Kushner was stuck in bonds for 2 really good years. And so that's where the conservative part comes in because, you know, that's when ChatGPT and NVIDIA started taking off and he was stuck in bonds. So it's one of those things where it's like for 2 years of a really strong bull market, he just did not want to participate and take the risk. But it was Trump getting elected that finally got him to kind of make a pivot. 187.40 on NVIDIA. That's green. We got to 187.69. 187.69 got up a little bit above. Did Kushner just buy EA Games? Yeah, his private equity fund, along with the Saudis, took EA private. Is that stock still trading 201? I think the buyout price is like 205. So currently trading just below that level, but yeah, those are going private. What else do we have? ASTS is up based on the Bluebird confirmation. Bluebird 6 yesterday. That's why that's up 8%. Rocket Lab got to deal with Synspectriv for 21 new launches. That's why that one was up a couple days ago. And BM&R moving a little bit here. Well, 3.5%. It's not a small move, but not breaking 55 yet, given Ethereum is up. ABCL, are we breaking 6? Not breaking 6, got to 576, but not up there yet. Fermi IPO is happening in a couple hours, so we're not going to get details on that for a while. It's still only 10:40, so it'll take some time before we get those details. But the price is 21, I believe, that they're going public at. So at 21, we're going to see. Okay, let's hear from the chief head of Apollo and see their perspective on rate cuts and how they're thinking of the shutdown.
Apollo Global Management Chief Economist Torsten Slok, who joins us here at Post 9. Torsten, you write recently the U.S. economy remains remarkably resilient. Does the ADP number change at all? Any of your view on that?
187.70, NVIDIA. She is continuing to go for all-time highs. 188 has 120,000 shares, but NVIDIA is still moving and trying to make these all-time highs.
Well, what really is important is that the labor market is obviously showing signs of weakness, but everything else is actually looking pretty good. If you look at including Nike earnings overnight, if you look at the weekly data for retail sales, if you look at how many people travel in airplanes, if you look at GDP for Q2, the Atlanta Fed GDP for Q3, 3.8, 3.9. I mean, there is something going on with the labor market. What is that? That is likely that immigration is slowing down. So this is why the labor market slowdown is likely not a reflection of weaker demand, but it's likely a reflection of weaker supply. And that is very important because that inconsistency is now becoming more and more clear in the labor market, really relative to most other things on the economic front.
Speaking of consistency, you've been rather consistent in saying that the chances for inflation perking up are fairly high. And you've been saying that for some time. You've certainly been a guest, I believe, and am I right, Sarah, that has argued that rates should not necessarily be going down. Do you still believe that?
Absolutely. The title of my piece today was that we in the economics profession, we need to look ourselves in the mirror, because what has been going on is that we're now 6 months away from Liberation Day. And we still have arguments that, oh, we're still just waiting for the delayed effects of what was happening with the trade war. We had so much uncertainty. All indicators of trade war uncertainty have been coming down. Indicators of economic policy uncertainty have been coming down. And on the back of that, in the meantime, you still have had GDP growth that was really strong in Q2. And again, the Atlanta Fed now saying we'll have GDP growth of almost 4% in Q3. This labor market is really standing out as a very unusual set of indicators relative to everything else.
So are you saying that you were wrong expecting inflation?
Well, I think that the case for inflation is just even stronger now, because there was already inflation coming because of tariffs. There was inflation coming because of the dollar going down. And now we have an economy that is just remarkably resilient. There are still some corners of the economy that's impacted by tariffs, yes, but these things have just not been big enough to slow things down in the aggregate. So that's why in the micro data, there's some issues, but in the macro data, things are still doing exceptionally well.
So you're worried about inflation not coming from tariffs, coming from a strong economy.
Both tariffs and a strong economy and a weaker dollar. And also, if you do deportations at the current pace, you also see wage growth go up in the sectors where unauthorized immigrants are working, in construction, agriculture, hotels, and restaurants. So the list of bullet points for why inflation is going to be higher is just growing even further if the economy actually...
I don't know if he's going to be exactly right about that. His arguments aren't necessarily wrong around why inflation would tick up. But so far, the data hasn't shown that yet. Now, again, he's making a predictive claim about inflation in the future, which I guess could be one reason why equities suffer. But if it doesn't play out like that, the labor market's probably still enough to get rate cuts, which is probably going to be good for earnings.
It ends up not slowing down as much as we thought just a few months ago.
If all that's true, why is the hiring rate where it is? CapEx intentions, UMISH, right? I mean, how are all those things coexisting?
So the regional Fed surveys, CapEx intentions are actually beginning to move higher. It really is correct that the labor market is at a standstill. You have very little hiring, very little firing. That is, of course, also reflecting that, well, if there is not much immigration coming in, well, then, of course, you will not have much hiring. By definition, under Biden, whoever we all voted for here is a side issue. But in the last several years, we had job creation of around 200,000 every month. Now we calculate.
Okay, but those jobs were fake. It was never real. Like it was all revised down. So like if he's using that as the basis of the argument, it's hard to make that the argument because none of those jobs ended up, or a significant portion of those jobs ended up not being real.
That's more like 50,000 every month. By definition, that means that job growth should be slower. So that's why the ADP data, of course, negative numbers, as David is saying, that's not great. But a very, very important backdrop here is to think about why is it negative? Why is it slowing? And it is absolutely slowing because immigration has slowed down.
So as an employer, my hiring decisions are based on immigration flows?
Well, if you can't find workers, if you can't find people
That's where the
standing
job
outside your
growth
door,
was.
then
Yeah.
you, of course, will have, well, then I'm not hiring many because I can't find the workers that I'm looking for. So that's why a lot of anecdotes continue to now confirm that there are challenges with finding workers, especially in the sectors where unauthorized immigrants are working. So I do think that we need to take the analysis now into saying what's going on in the labor market, what's going on elsewhere, and elsewhere just continues to be remarkably resilient.
I wonder how.
Now, look, there could be a point around immigration. I mean, you can't say that's completely wrong, that the lack of massive immigration, which we did have under Biden, could be a bottleneck for hiring and firing, obviously, because you have employers that do want to get immigrant labor as it's cheaper than American labor. So that could be an argument. I don't know if that's enough to kind of say inflation reaccelerates, but it is one thing that I think the markets and definitely JPO and the Fed will be looking at a lot deeper.
Important as the growth of data centers and the building of them to the overall growth of the economy. And I mentioned that in part because I know you've been doing work. I think you recently came on and talked about perhaps the lack of a return on invested capital, at least at this point, in terms of what we're seeing in the enterprise for AI usage. But when it comes to data centers, Torsten, is that a big part of what's going on right now?
That has been contributing more to GDP growth. So that has absolutely been lifting GDP in the last 2 quarters. So this is indeed very important. Of course, there is a very important debate around, is this justified? Can the companies generate the earnings everywhere in that complex? But the bottom line is this from a GDP perspective.
Oh, hold on. That's a big headline right here. Supreme Court declines to allow Trump to fire Lisa Cook immediately. Wow. Court to consider the case in January. That's a big blow to the Trump administration. They wanted to get rid of Lisa Cook and replace her with a new Fed Gov, aka not only a new Fed governor, but a dovish Fed governor, right? Looks like that's not the case. I'll try to get some more coverage on that, but looks like the Supreme Court said, nope, we're going to take a look at this in January. And after the Supreme Court says it, it's pretty much final. So looks like Lisa Cook will continue to be a Fed governor.
Has indeed been a very important factor.
You expect it to continue?
Well, the issue now becomes whether valuations can continue. So, as you know, Tesla with a PE ratio of 150 to 200, is that the right valuation? Likewise, Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, of course, PE ratios at these levels that we're seeing, of course, require significant growth in earnings over the next several years. And given these companies are now so big, everyone expects earnings for the AI complex to begin to slow down. So it does, I know it's very circular, this discussion, but it does begin to imply that if companies can deliver on that, then everything is great. But if there's any sign of a slowdown, like you're seeing in the bi-weekly census survey of AI adoption beginning to weaken, in particular for larger companies, then you could begin to worry about the broader ramification if there is some question marks around the overall AI theme.
Yeah, well, especially given the trillions that are going to be spent and the debt markets, obviously Apollo playing an important role.
Immigration's definitely an issue that is going to be talked about a lot more, especially if the economists think that that is the reason for a job slowdown. Look, I've been trying to understand the labor market a lot over the past couple of weeks, especially since we got that massive revision. Immigration is definitely one element towards it. The lack of hiring and firing based on certain skill sets that workers need is an element of it. But realistically, and this is the part where I don't have enough data, but I'm very curious to kind of see how this ends up playing out. And I think following the story is going to be important. Is AI really going to get rid of tons and tons of jobs? I mean, that is a big question that I don't think a lot of us have the answer to yet. And, you know, we've heard from some of the leading sources in the AI ecosystem, like Dario from Anthropic, who said, yes, you know, his argument is that we absolutely are going to lose a lot of white collar jobs due to the advance of AI. What happens when that actually starts happening, bro? When that when the average consultant in New York, like, just doesn't have their job anymore because the consulting firm's like, hey, we don't like what happens to hundreds of thousands of people living in the coastal elites of the world, San Francisco, New York, et cetera, that have white collar research jobs that just go away. Like, the implication of that, I don't think we've fully figured out. And we haven't really seen AI get to the point where it's literally getting rid of all those people. But I mean, what happens when it does happen?
It's a hardcore question, bro. Like it's one of those things, Steve started talking about this a couple months ago, and it's something that, if there was one thing to keep you up at night, I think it would be that, because when that happens, there's no going back, because we're not like reversing technology. The only way to go is forward. So then the question becomes, what are the new industries created via AI? And are those industries conducive enough to actually employ tens of millions of people that theoretically might lose their job because of AI? Everyone has to learn to go be a plumber. We're laughing about that, but like maybe, dude, like there's going to be a need for hard skills and trade skills. There's always a need for those trade skills, but there might be more demand for people trying to learn those skills if that's like how they can prove value to society. But look, if you've been a consultant your whole life and you've been, sitting in front of presentations and, getting nice iced lattes during work, and like that whole vibe of working goes away. Like that's just not a thing anymore because AI has replaced it. I wonder what that does to a whole sector of the economy that was used to working in a certain way. It's going to be a very different ecosystem if AI ends up changing a lot of these different things. People can be more creative. Yeah. But again, like creativity is tough to monetize. It's just not the easiest thing in the world to be creative and to make money off of it. So there's a lot of implications to this stuff. Circle right here up 2%, Enphase up 4.3. Trying to get some coverage on the Lisa Cook stuff. We don't have official coverage on that yet, but it looks like the Supreme Court has said that they will be taking a look at this in January. Salvi said, as a plumber, I made $700,000 last year. That's incredible, dude. I think the average salary I looked up for a plumber is like $150,000. What is the average salary for plumbers? Maybe I'm way off, but I think it's around. Okay, so the high end is around 100. It's actually around 70. 98 on the high, 70 on the low, which is not too crazy. A lot of this varies state by state, though. Yeah, one of these websites says in Michigan, it's around 120. So there's a little bit of a nuance towards where it goes. But if you own your own independent plumbing business, that's also different, right? Because if you're not paying like a commission as like a part of a broader plumbing complex, but you own your own business, that's also varies the results. Bitcoin right there, 117.13. 300K in Boston. Wow. I made 150K as an electrician last year. 457. Oh, not 457,000. Tesla 457. So you made 457,000 as a plumber. 457. There you go. Tesla breaking through. Put in the chat if you have a trade skill. Put in the chat. Let's do a poll on that. I don't think we've ever asked this question before. Let's see. Who do we have in the chat that does the stuff that's hard to do, that most don't want to do, but you are able to do it? By the way, 56% of you said green. So do you have a trade skill? Plumbing, electrician. IT doesn't count. IT is not real, bro. IT is you're in front of a computer all day. It's not real work, bro. IT is not real work. IT is answering phone calls and telling the client to plug the computer in and out again. We're talking about something real. SOFI right there. That's up 1%. 26.76. I'm a trash driver. I make 120,000. Dude, I mean, 120,000 as a trash driver is pretty freaking incredible. Like, those are jobs that pay. And if they can pay very well, you can take that money and then put it into the market. Tesla right there, trying to break through 457.50. Trying to break from 457.50. Gas technician, I make 25 an hour. Union carpenter, I made 130K last year. And these jobs are very, 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 very underrated. 200,000. I do programming for painting robots. Wow. Deep sea diver, 150 an hour. Dude, the deep sea divers and the people that live on the ocean for like 6 months at a time. I mean, some of those, I was actually watching. It's funny you bring that. I was watching a video about that the other day. And some of these people make like 10,000 a month, because that is like, you're living on the ocean. You're like, constantly dealing with the waves of the ocean. You're going into the sea. Like, there's so much nuance and technicality to those types of jobs. And you really have to have a certain skill set and a certain just level of like, hey, I don't care what happens. Like, I'm just going to go and do it, right? Like, I'm not going to be afraid that the boat is wobbling too much at night and I can't sleep. Like, you got to have a certain type of energy to just get through that. And it pays very well. Ethereum right there, 4,300 breaking through. Bitmine, 5,374 is what you got on Bitmine. I'm a chef. I make 130,000. Yeah, see, like this is the thing. I think a lot of those types of jobs are going to be getting more demand. The question is, do we have that much supply for those types of jobs? And one would argue that we need a lot more plumbers than exist. We need a lot more electricians that would exist. But if we have mass layoffs due to AI, can everyone become a plumber? Like those are really hard questions that I don't think we have the answers to. Yeah, Tesla right here, 457.80. Let me check resistance at 458. 457 was 120. Oh, never mind. I don't need to check resistance because Tesla just hit 458. What a run today, bro. What a freaking run. 250K as a tunnel geologist. See, that's incredible. People who install HVACs. Yeah, HVAC technician, 230K. I mean, those are really, really incredible jobs. Some of those pay better than tech salaries, quite frankly. There's more work that you have to put in, but these are not bad paying jobs. 459 resistance on Tesla. 12,000 shares. 12,000 shares on Tessie. Dude, she's making a nice move. She's making a nice move. 55% of you say no, I don't have a trade skill. 45% of you, which is still a decent chunk, say yes. And so it's about a 55-45 split. Tesla right there, 458.50. I really wish I had a trade skill. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I am so bad at like building anything. I remember when I went camping with my friends and I had to help them build a tent. Dude, like, I'm so bad at this stuff. Like I told you guys the story. I fixed the vacuum a year ago in our house because it broke. And my mom, she wanted to throw me a party. She's like, you fixed the vacuum? She's like, you? I was like, yeah. She's like, out of all people, you ended up fixing that. I was like, yeah, I took it apart. I was honestly so proud of myself. She was like, I cannot believe you can. And my mom's kind of accepted that I'm just like a talker. She's like, no, I know you can't help with any of this type of stuff but you can talk you can talk my face off. You can keep talking. You can have deep conversations. But if I ask you to go fix something in the backyard, yeah, you're going to suck at that. So I'm going to need those robots, bro. When it comes to repairing stuff, like, look, I want to be a manly man and like fix the garage for my wife one day. But also I'm like, if the robot can do it, like, do I really? It's like, so it's one of those things. We got to see what the use cases for the robots tend out to be. Tesla really trying for 459, 458.70. SOFI's up 1, and then S&P is about to go green. S&P is about to go green. Let's see if it can get there. I made 90,000 as an aircraft mechanic, got an engineering degree, and my salary is 65K. Yeah, I mean, pretty incredible, Colin. It's pretty incredible. Can you fix Grab? Dude, I think I gotta buy Grab here. We went from 620 to 601. I think we gotta take a shot at it right here. That is pretty aggressive price action. All right, we're gonna do 500 shares. We're gonna do 500 at 602. Let's throw that in there. There you go, 500 more. Grab dude, for the past week and a half, it's been letting me just buy it at like the 601, 602, 599, and I have no issue adding to the stack at these levels. If they're gonna keep giving me a shot every day, then we'll do it. All right, 500 of Grab. We got that in. Tesla, 458. Where's Meta? Are we still at 715? We're at 715. I wanted to see this one break below 710, but that's not doing that yet. So that one's still at 715. SMCI. Dude, we're not really getting dips. Like, even Grab, I mean, that's been stuck at 6 for the past couple of days. That's not really a massive dip. Google, 1% down is not a dip. NVIDIA, there's no dip. Tesla, there's no dip. Palantir, no dip. Robinhood might lose 140 right here, but so far it's holding it pretty well. AMD, there's no dip. AMD was at 157 last week. I guess that was a little bit of a dip. BM&R still 54. There's no dip there. There you go. ASTS move. Oh, wow. Pounter 186. Okay, let's see. Let's see if she has some juice. Let's see if there is some juice to get this bad boy back into the 188s. Be very nice to see. John says I made 200,000 as a personal trainer, 50 to 60 hours a week. Yeah, and see, again, it's hard to do personal training. That's not an easy job. I mean, if you love working out and you love being in that world, it becomes easier, but it's one of those things that takes hard work. And potentially you might have a lot more demand in for AI as that continues to scale. S&P 500, very close to going green, folks. Very, very close. There she goes, green. We are green, 666.25 on the S&P. How about the heat map today? Let's see. Starting to go green. Hood did lose 140 for a second. Google and Meta are still red. NVIDIA, Apple green. Tesla's green. Lily's green. Lily another 5% day, 2 days in a row. Not too bad. Max 7 starting to move. Oracle's actually getting a little bit of a move too. I mean, not bad. S&P first day of October. It took about an hour and a half, but you're starting to see a move. 666.24, 667.3 is your highs. Fear and greed's at 52. That's up from 50. So still in neutral, not in greed yet. Still at 52. And you're starting to get a bit of move. In terms of the top stocks that were traded in the options market today, here you go. Tesla with 780,000 contracts. NVIDIA at 590,000. Then you got Apple, iBit, MicroStrategy, Pfizer, Meta is up there. SMCI, Nike, Palantir, AMD, Amazon, Plug, Intel, Hood, Marathon, Opendoor, SoFi, Ethereum, and Coinbase. Those are your top 20 stocks traded in the options market. And a lot of these names beginning to get some green momentum. Grab right there, 602, then Google, still down by 1%. Steve the milkman versus Amit the plumber. Exactly. Robinhood, she lost 140. All right, so let's see if we can get back there. She did lose 140. Would be very strong if we can make a run to get back. If not, I think that's okay. Obviously, it's run up from 120 over the past couple of days, so would not be crazy to see it stay there. Let's get an update on the Lisa Cook situation. We got some coverage on that, and then we'll keep going from there.
Given the Cook case, and now there's a lack of data because of the shutdown. Let's get to Eamon Javers with more on all of that. Eamon?
Yeah, what we know is now that this Supreme Court order has been handed down, there's going to be oral arguments at the Supreme Court in January of 26. And this decision defers the administration's request for a stay of a lower court ruling, which allowed Lisa Cook to stay on the board while all of this was being sorted out in the courts. The Supreme Court saying, in fact, she can stay on the board while we hear this case. The arguments will be in January, guys, but you're making a good point just a moment ago that once they have the arguments, it can be months before you get a final decision in the Supreme Court. Oftentimes, what you'll have is arguments in January and February on cases and decisions not until the spring. So if this is not on an expedited timeline, it could be quite some time before we get a resolution of the case here, or the Supreme Court could move quickly. The court can do what it wants, but this will then be up to them. No reaction yet from the Trump White House, but as soon as we get off the air here, I'll run inside and see if anybody has anything to say about this decision.
Eamon, are you ready to offer some conjecture on what it does to the White House's overall efforts to exert more influence on the bank?
Yeah, I don't think the overall effort to push the Fed is going to go away anytime soon. This one might sort of go into hibernation for a period of time. We might not see as many headlines out of it, but it doesn't seem to me that the Trump administration is going to stop pushing the Fed to lower rates and doing what it can to influence the individual personnel on the Fed one way or the other to get the decision that it wants, either to try to push some people out, to try to get people to resign, to try to get their, imprint their will on the Fed. I don't think any of that is going to go away. This particular effort might not be effective now for months, though.
Right. No, the big questions are still obviously to be heard and arguments in January. That's going to be interesting to watch after the new year.
I also just want to make the point, Eamon, that it sort of, I mean, look, the Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration to fire other officials at other government agencies. I think that this makes the Fed a bit of a standout and a bit of an exception here. The fact that they didn't immediately allow him to do that with the Fed.
I think one of the things that might have been influential here, and we'll have to go back and do the oral history maybe years from now when it comes to the Supreme Court, but you saw that amicus brief last week from all of the former living Fed chairs about the vital nature of the independence of the Fed and the idea of politicization of the Fed being bad for financial markets and bad for global markets that depend on the Fed to set a tone. You know, they were arguing in very basic terms about what it means to have a fiat currency that's not pegged to the gold standard anymore. And really what it comes down to is confidence that the currency is being managed in a responsible way and not out of a short-term political impulse. And the argument in that brief was if you allow this to happen, it could have dramatically bad effects on the U.S. economy in the long run. And that may have had some resonance at the Supreme Court level.
Yeah, indeed. And along with the argument about cause and due process, and we kind of often skip mentioning, Eamon, the reporting that Reuters and others have done, looking back at talking to tax assessors in Ann Arbor who argue that there was no wrongdoing on her part.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Lisa Cook has said that she did not commit fraud, right? And so, straight up, that this was not a fraudulent situation. And so that has to be adjudicated.
All right, so Supreme Court basically saying we're not going to take a look at this until January, and so she will still be a Fed gov. Pouncer right there, 186. Wow, Nvidia, dude. Nvidia's trying. Tesla's also trying. Tesla got to 458, now at 456. Nvidia, 20 cents from 188. 20 cents. And if we can get there, that would officially be a new all-time high again, which is not too bad. KDD says, I'm a $65,000 per year local truck driver. This is the first time this year that I've made six figures in the market. Wow. Yeah, see, I mean, and I think that's another thing that, Vlad talks about a lot from Robinhood, which is that a lot of people, they're going to start to realize that investing is necessary along with their primary source of income. I mean, all of us have started to recognize that, but just the entire world might become a little bit more optimistic about the idea of taking a chance via investing if the labor market is not as effective. So to be able to make double your truck salary in the markets just goes to show how powerful the markets can be. And in the age of AI, I mean, again, it's like, it seems like the answer is that you have to be invested. You have to have equity across the board. And the one thing I think all of us in this community have a one-up on from like everyone else that doesn't really understand what's happening with AI is if there is a labor market downfall where everyone, including myself, is affected in some way or another, at least you're in the companies that are doing the affecting, aka the NVIDIAs, the Microsofts, the Googles, right? The companies that are benefiting from all that margin enhancement, which means their earnings will benefit, even if the labor market's not benefiting. And just the NASDAQ itself is a way to be invested. NVIDIA right there, 187.67. That one continues to go higher. AI emit when? No, but that's a real risk, dude. Like some people might just not want to listen to me. They want to listen to an AI version of me. I mean, we don't know how good AI is going to get, right? Like, I don't think AI is going to be funnier than me ever. I really doubt that. But like, what if Elon cooks up Grok 17 and it ends up being funnier than Emit somehow? Like that's a threat, bro. It's a real threat. In all seriousness, like it is actually something where people just might consume content in a different way. I mean, people used to read newspapers and then they stopped. Times change. So like it's one of those things that everyone has to be alert in terms of how AI can impact them. Qs just went green at 600. But truck driving hopefully is not going away. So making $65,000 a year from truck driving and then being able to take that money and do something with it, aka compound it in the markets. I think that's the most important thing. And that's what, a lot of truck drivers don't do. So it's very, very important to be able to have that allocation. Will the AI version be straight? Oh my goodness. The AI Emit will pronounce words correctly. Funnier than you. Have you heard you? Dude, guys, don't lie. I'm a funny guy. Okay. I'm a funny guy. Nebius right there, 111. Don't act like I'm not a funny guy, bro. We don't have to be that condescending here, okay? I don't know if the AI can replicate this humor. Grab just below 6. All right, it wants to, if it wants to be wonky, I would not be surprised if that one rebounds to 610. 599 is usually where it gets stuck at. It has to break 590 to get a new low, maybe to make a downtrend, but so far it's not there. Do you mean funny looking? You guys are so disrespectful to A-class humor that you get to experience twice a day. Like literally twice a day, you get to experience this type of humor. You just don't want to be grateful for it. You don't want to be grateful. Did you see the Hood H1B drama yesterday? Even Vlad tweeted in the thread. Yeah, we saw that. Robinhood actually came out with a response this morning. So someone basically accused Robinhood of discriminating against conservatives. And Robinhood came out today saying, after a thorough investigation, we believe we've identified the author of the original post, a disgruntled former employee who was terminated for poor performance after several months. Unfortunately, this was posted to an anonymous social media site that doesn't filter out ex-employees. Robinhood is firmly a merit-based company, and we have zero tolerance towards policy discrimination or political beliefs and otherwise. I actually believe Robinhood here. And the reason for that is because if you've talked to the employees at Robinhood, the culture is intense. Like you cannot just go through the motions and exist at that company. You've got firm deadlines. You've got firm responsibilities. Vlad sets the tone. They're shipping 10, 15 products a year. If you can't perform, you're out. You're done. And so a lot of these platforms where people complain about their employers tends to be disgruntled employees that think they got fired for no reason, when in reality, they just sucked as employees. And, they get fired if you're not living up to the performance. So I do believe in there. By the way, Vlad donated $2 million to Trump. Robinhood's had a very friendly administration, or very friendly relationship with the administration. So the idea that they hate MAGA, it's like, well, they've been embracing it. The whole AI, crypto, blockchain revolution we've seen over the past couple months in terms of legislation, Robinhood's been at the forefront of it. So I don't necessarily think they are straight up saying, hey, if you're MAGA, you can't work here. Like, I don't think that's the culture that's being set put by Vlad. Everyone donated to Trump. That's fair. But Robinhood donated $2 million. Everyone donated $1 million. So they did give a little bit more money, but more seriously, like the fact that they even gave money. They didn't have to. They could have just said whatever, but they want to be on the good side of this administration. And they definitely don't want the administration getting upset at them for discriminating against political beliefs. Ethereum right there, 4,300. That's up 4.6. Visa, I own this in the stock draft. This one's been kind of flat. That's up 2% of the day. I don't have much thoughts on Visa other than stablecoins I think are a tailwind for them. And that hasn't played out yet, but I think eventually it will. We are down 1.5% in the stock draft on Visa. So I think we'll break even on that. And eventually stablecoins should increase look, nothing is going to go down in their earnings over the coming quarters, especially due to like stablecoins or blockchains. But the narrative is that it could. And Visa got all the way down to 300 at one point this year because of that 273. I think once that narrative flips, Visa's on the path to 400. And it almost got there. It got to 375 earlier this year. So I don't think that would play out. Did you see Tom Lee's tweet that Steve retweeted? I did not. Let's see what they tweeted. Oh, Steve must have loved this tweet. Tom Lee says, to me, as long as NVIDIA trades at a PE discount to Costco and Walmart, there is upside to AI. Steve must have freaking loved this tweet when he saw it. There you go. Costco trades at 48 times. Walmart trades at 34 times. NVIDIA at 26 times. Now, granted, NVIDIA is probably trading at a more expensive level because that's when the price was at 168. Now we're at 187. But still, shows the multiple is down. Robinhood down 3% today. All right, so gave up 140s. Pretty normal. Expected to see that. And hopefully we can consolidate in the high 130s. Palantir right there, 186. And then Tessie just down before 546. Amit, is Steve nervous about his channel debut? I hope it doesn't turn out like a meta launch. No, I think Steve's excited. Steve did say the first like 20, 30 minutes of the stream are just going to be him explaining like what the channel is about. If you read his description, it's a funny description. He's like, on this channel, I will be talking about investing. I will be talking about the stock market. I will be talking about my favorite movies. I will be talking about my favorite food. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to be talking about everything I love. So I think it'll be a good one. I think he'll enjoy it. And, you know, we got to see if he's consistent. I mean, the hardest part about building a YouTube channel is being consistent. And with Seeking Alpha, he's very consistent. And obviously, Steve has the work ethic for it. But, you know, he also has a regular job. So he's going to have to find some time every week to make videos, which I don't think is going to be that hard. But I do think he's excited for the journey of trying it. It should be fun. Bro is filling out his MySpace profile. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, Pokemon cards. They'll be talking about that as well. Damashi, thanks you for being a channel member. My trade skills are uploading sick gameplays in 4K and buying the dips. That is definitely one type of a trader. That is fair. Terry Master, thank you for the €5. Belated congrats for 100,000 subs. 1 AK Media going public. Appreciate that. Thank you for the congrats. I don't think AK Media will ever go public. But yeah, hopefully we can just keep growing and keep doing what we got to do every day. NVIDIA right there, 187, Palantir 185, and then Tesla 455. Do we have any other main headlines today, or is that pretty much it? I mean, relatively flat market outside of NVIDIA and Tesla. We got the Supreme Court news, nothing too crazy. Oh, Google cutting employees in its cloud division this week. All right, so maybe that's why Google's down a little bit. Although Google should probably be up on that news. Usually when you get the employees being laid off news, that tends to pump it more. So we don't have any details on how many employees, but cloud division seeing some layoffs. Google right there at 240. UNH, how's that one been doing? Are we still at 350 right there? UNH 347. That one holding on. Yeah, for anyone who wants to subscribe, Ray put his link right there in the chat so you can subscribe. He's almost at 3,000 subs, hasn't uploaded a single video, which goes to show how much people are looking forward to his channel, which is super, super awesome. Amit, would you sell covered calls on BMNR October 31st, 60? I don't hate that. However, I mean, Bitmine can run, dude. So you might want to be a little bit more conservative. Maybe 65 end of October. I mean, usually when you're trying to figure out, is the premium worth it? You just got to ask yourself, how much of a run do you think the stock can make? Now, again, it all comes down to Ethereum. That's why it's also hard to write calls on this, because if you want to keep the shares, if you don't care about keeping the shares, then it's whatever, right? But if you want to keep the shares and you want to still be conservative, if ETH explodes on a random Sunday, Bitmine's going up the next day. So I'd probably aim for 65, 70 versus 60, given we are close to that. Yeah, Nubank, I think, is down 5% on that news of them coming to the United States, which I don't think that's the reason they should be down 5%, but that's why that stock is down. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's what we got. 11:20 right here. About 2.5 hours in. I don't see any other crazy news going on. I mean, let's get a little bit of coverage of Nike right here, because we did hear from them yesterday. But outside of that, I think that's pretty much what we got today.
Called out where it saw good growth and where Elliott Hill, the CEO who's been there for about a year, who came to turn it around, has been focused. North America, the home market, it did grow 4%. That was definitely an improvement. Wholesale, that's the relationships with the Dick's Sporting Goods and the Foot Lockers, and now they've opened new relationships with Amazon and Aritzia. That saw some nice growth. Running, that's been a category they've been really focused on, and Hill gave a lot of shout outs to the running team, growing more than 20% during the quarter. Some early signs that the new innovations there are working. They redid the Vomero and the Pegasus Premium, and those have been good sellers in the running space. That doesn't mean, though, that it's all clear when it comes to this turnaround. China, for instance, is still seeing declining sales, down 10%. And then the sportswear business, it's something that Hill highlighted on the conference call last night as room for improvement. Listen.
While the sports performance teams are finding a higher gear, our sportswear teams have work to do to get sharper on the consumers we're serving. And we see it in our results. Our business continues to decline. Continuing to build a clear product construct in sportswear, as we're doing in our performance sports, remains a priority. We do have pockets of strength, especially
on the call last night, talking, guys, about the wins, and there definitely has been, and some progress, but then also recognition of some of the work to do when it comes to, as Hill himself said at the top of the call, restoring Nike back to greatness. He said we're early and it's happening. And then he and also the CFO in the release said it's not going to be linear, and it's still a tough operating environment. Now that $1 billion that they mentioned last quarter in tariff costs was elevated to $1.5 billion because of the new tariff rates, for instance, on India and Vietnam with some of these trade deals. So managing through that kind of environment at the same time as trying to turn around the company.
Yeah, I think that's why the stock's up today as well. I mean, look, it is not a blowout quarter, 73.50. That's up 5%. I know a decent number of people have been buying Nike over the past couple of years. It has been a bigger retail favorite in the broader market, but you know, this thing bottomed at 52. Now it's 73. It's up, what, 20% for the year on Nike? What do we have? Year to date? No, it's actually flat for the year. Huh. I thought it was up more. It's up 20% from the lows of April, but still flat for the year. And so it doesn't look like this quarter was a quarter that necessarily showed they were massively turning it around, but definitely not going in the bad direction or in the opposite direction, which is why this one's getting a boost. On taking Nike business. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different competitors that have stepped up. I mean, I went to a Nike store, I think like a month ago, and it was empty, bro, completely empty. Maybe it was the summer or something, but like, it was just like, these just rows and rows and rows of Nike products and no one cared about it. And it was quite surprising, but it looks like they're in the process of that turnaround. Bought more shares to grab. Where are we? 596. All right, she's breaking. Now let's see, 590. Just got to really break below 590 for this one to get a bit more juicy. If not, maybe it makes its way right back up to 605. That break to 622 today was, at this point, seems like it was part of the ups and downs of every day. Grab going up 3 cents, down 5 cents, up 20 cents, down 14 cents. To me, it just means it's making a base at these levels, getting a good group of buyers here, and then on the next catalyst has a room to run. Apple right there, that's up about 0.5%. Ethereum still moving, trying to get to 44. And then BM&R not stopping. William says, I sell $80 covered calls on BM&R. The premiums are still good, but I'm being conservative. Yeah. I mean, a move to 80 could happen easily, but it also is definitely way more conservative than 65. And the premiums on this name are still pretty decent. So not bad to try to collect those. Robinhood, are we about to lose 139? It's close. All right. So Robinhood giving back some of the gains. Not surprising at all. Probably normal. Palantir right there. That's up 1.2. Tesla still holding above 450. And then NVIDIA giving back a decent chunk of its gains today, but still at least around 186. So there you go. All right, folks, that is it for me. We are done for the day. I don't think we have any earnings after the bell. Yeah, nothing today. So we'll see what we get. I'll try to get Steve on the close today. I know we haven't heard from him on a couple of days, so we'll see if he's free. We can get some of his thoughts. And then we will be ending out the first day of Q4 and the first day of October as well. Oh, Fermi is up. Is the chart up? Fermi. Okay, 27. Hasn't IPO'd yet. Is it being priced at 27? No, 21. Okay, still being priced at 21. Looks like you have some bidders at 27 on the book flow, but that one should go public in about an hour. Amit, will you be reviewing Taylor Swift's new album on Friday? Dude, Friday's market open is literally just going to be us listening to Taylor Swift's album. How could you even ask that question? How could you even ask me if I was doing that? Of course, we'll be reviewing Taylor Swift's album on Friday. We're going to start 4 hours early. We're going to do a 12 a.m. stream on Friday, on Thursday night, just to listen to the Swifties. So yes, we'll be making sure we can review that. We're going to have to, dude. We're going to have to. All right, word of the day. By the way, I'm just kidding. Kind of. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. I guess we'll see. Thursday, 12 a.m. We'll see if we go live. Doohickey is the word of the day. Doohickey. There's no way I'm saying this wrong.
Doohickey.
Doohickey. Okay, that's pretty reasonable. A gadget, dingus, or thingamajig. Is thingamajig a real word, bro? I can't believe that's a real word. Holy crap, that's a real word. Used to refer to or address a person whose name one has forgotten, does not know, or does not wish to mention. Bro, if I told you guys thingamajig is a real word, I don't think anyone would have believed me. I did not know thingamajig. I've used that word, a ton of times, but I didn't know it was real. Oh, they don't have sentences for this one. Doohickey, a gadget, dingus, or thingamajig. Dude, thingamajig? That's a word? That's crazy, bro. Did not expect that to be a word. There you go. That is our word of the day. With or without a silent G? That's a good question. That is a good question. So there you go. Word of the day. That's what we got. That's pretty much it. Good start to Q4, or at least I should say not a bad start to Q4. S&P right there basically flat. Hopefully if that continues, we keep some of that momentum. But as of now, that's what we got going on. I think the other thing that's important today is this new shutdown vote, right? So Mike Johnson did say they're going to have another vote today. That vote's probably going to happen around 5 p.m. Eastern, so during the market close. So we'll probably get some updates on if they are seriously taking another vote and if there's any level of ambition to vote to not shut down the government. But government shut down, market's not reacting in that negative of way, and we're going to see by the end of the day if we get any reversal on the shutdown. All right, there you go. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everyone being here. We'll be back in a few hours on the market close. Happy October, start of Q4, and we will keep this going. Thank you, everybody. See you guys in a few hours. Bye, everyone.